Good morning. We are here at the Board of Behavioral Sciences in the Lou Galliano Hearing Room at 1625 North Market Boulevard in Sacramento, and this is a meeting of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Christina, can we call for a quorum?
Yes, good morning. I'm going to start over there. Jonathan Maddox,
Here.
Ross Ehrlich,
Here.
Christina Wong,
Here.
Leah Brew,
Here.
Wendy Strack,
Here.
Betty Conley,
Here.
Deborah Brown,
Here.
John Sovek.
Here.
We have a quorum.
You missed me, but I'm here.
I am so sorry, Matt. Disposti.
I thought I was invisible.
And for the record, Crystal Anthony is absent. We have a quorum.
Okay. So before we get into our public comments for items not on the agenda, I'm going to have the board members introduce themselves, but I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our 3 new board members. So a huge welcome to John Sovek, who was appointed by the governor, to Ross Ehrlich, who was appointed by the Assembly, and Wendy Strack, who was also appointed by the governor. So again, thank you very much. I will let you take a few extra minutes when you introduce yourself to just tell us where you're from, give us a little bit of your background. That would be awesome. And let's go ahead and start over here with John.
Good morning. My name is John Sovak. I am an LMFT out of Pasadena, California, and I specialize in working with LGBTQ adolescents and their families during the coming out process. I also do a lot of trainings. I travel the country speaking at conferences, helping to create affirming spaces for LGBTQ populations, and I'm adjunct faculty at Phillips Graduate University.
Wow, thank you.
Deborah Brown, public member.
Betty Connolly, LEP member.
Max Disposti, public member.
Wendy Strack, I'm a public member and a new member. I own my own government relations and communications firm. I'm from Riverside, California. I am active in my community and just really excited to be here. Thank you.
Leah Brew, LPCC member.
Christina Wong, LCSW member.
Ross Ehrlich, a public member from Los Angeles, California. I just recently moved to Pasadena 3 days ago. I'm a criminal defense attorney, very civically engaged in my community, have been for a long time, so I'm very excited to get to know everybody and do the work on the board.
And Jonathan Maddox, MFT member.
All right, thank you very much. So now, is there any public comments before we move to our agenda for the day? Public comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, can we move to any suggestions for future agenda items? All right, then with that, I would like to welcome and thank Judge Sean Gavin and turn this over to the judge.
There it is. Good morning, everyone. We're going to start in a moment, but before we begin, I just want to give just a general overview for folks who are going to be having their petitions heard today. A couple things. First is when we call your case, we'll have you come take the seat up here next to Ms. Heim. Once you do that, then I'll give on the record for each of you a similar overview. But the hearing consists of essentially 2 parts. The first part is Ms. Heim will present your petition packet to the board and give a brief overview of what the contents of your petition are, and then turn it over to you. You'll get sworn in as a witness, and you can testify and present any additional documents that you would like to present. When you do that, please keep in mind that the board has already reviewed your petition, so there's no need to go in depth and explain everything that's in the petition already. They have reviewed it. Also keep in mind that the board is particularly interested not in the facts that led to the original discipline, but rather any rehabilitation since then. And so You'll be invited to testify about those things, and then we'll turn it over to questions. Ms. Heim will question you, and then the board will question you. When you're testifying, we have a court reporter here who's typing everything that anyone says. That means three things for us. Number one, it means we need to speak loudly enough, slowly enough, and one at a time enough that he can clearly hear what was said. Number two, it means we need to communicate with words as opposed to gestures or non-word sounds. Uh-huh and uh-uh look very similar when typed out. Same with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, any other finger up or down would certainly communicate information, but the court reporter is not obligated to interpret that gesture. So if that happens, I may interrupt and say, is that a yes or is that a no? I'm not trying to suggest what your answer should be. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to ensure that the record is clear about what your testimony was. And then finally, with respect to the court reporter, in a rare circumstance that he does not hear clearly what you said, he may interrupt and ask you to repeat that. You will not be facing him. He's situated slightly behind you. He's not aided by being able to see your lips, so you'll need to make sure that you keep the volume up. But if he interrupts and asks you to repeat something, he is not questioning you as a witness. He does not want you to say anything other than the exact same word or phrase you just used, but louder and slower. So if you said, I saw Dr. So-and-so, and he said, who is that? You would not say, he's my orthopedist in Roseville. You would just repeat the exact name that you just said. All right? With that said, the first case that we're going to call is Mr. Hooper. So Mr. Hooper, if you're here, can you come take a seat at council table?
Good morning.
Good morning. Are you ready? All right, we are on the record in the petition for reinstatement or modification of penalty of Hassan David Hooper, OAH case number 2020-020-011, and agency case number 2002-014-001-380. This matter is being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Can I take the appearances of the parties, starting with counsel?
Good morning, Patricia Weber-Heim, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
Judge Gavin, I was actually petitioned for early termination and not for modification. So I wanted to let the record be clear that that's what I was petitioning for.
All right. And the record should reflect, Mr. Hooper, that you are here today without the assistance of counsel. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. As I said a moment ago, before we went on the record, the hearing will consist of essentially two phases. First, I'll invite Ms. Heim to present the petition packet to orient the board, and then we'll turn it over to you to testify, to add any documents that you feel you need to add, and then to answer questions either by Ms. Heim or by board members. Do you have any questions about any of the process in that regard?
No, sir.
All right. Yes.
The packet that we were given, is that different than the electronic copy that we have?
It's in a slightly different order. Are there extras?
They stalled here. They stalled here.
So it sounds like it's a...
Hang on. Let me just interrupt for just 1 minute. We're presently on the record, and so I understand the instinct to try to ask questions, but the court reporter needs to be able to hear exactly what's being said. So the question was, is the packet that the board received electronically different than what's been distributed presently? I would turn that question to Ms. Heim because I don't know.
Thank you. The packet that you received today is in a slightly different order than what you received electronically. Unfortunately, this particular packet, with the exception of all of the packets you will receive today, this packet was arranged in the order that normally is presented when there are single hearings presented before the Office of Administrative Hearings. And so normally in those packets, the notification of hearing to the petitioner and the certification of licensure comes first. So those two, those two exhibits are first rather than in the order that you received them on electronically, but that is the only difference in the packet that you received today. All of the documents that you received electronically are exactly the same as what you received today.
So the contents are the same, but the sequence?
Contents are the same, the sequence is slightly altered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Maddox, did that satisfy your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
All right. All right. So, Mr. Hooper, as I said, do you have any questions about the procedure before I turn it over to Ms. Heim to present the board packet?
No, sir, it was just to make sure that we were clear that it was for early termination of probation, so no.
Okay. And just please ensure that when you do speak, you speak directly into the microphone so that the court reporter can clearly
Yes.
understand.
Can everybody hear me? Thank you.
All right. Ms. Heim, when you're ready.
Thank you. I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the packet that has been presented to you today, which is, as I said, slightly altered from the one that you received electronically. The board members and the petitioner have been provided with a copy of this exhibit as well as the administrative law judge. Exhibit 1 consists of the following. Exhibit 1 in this packet consists of the notification of today's hearing to the petitioner dated February 3rd, 2020, followed by the registration and license history certification for petitioner for his licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 79118 and the associate marriage and family therapist license number AMFT 45065. The packet then consists of the petition for the modification of probation. This is what the petition actually does request. Unfortunately, I am hearing you say that it was for early termination. But the petition itself, which is dated July 6th, 2019, has attachments which include one page of typewritten explanations by the petitioner for answers to questions 8, 10, 11, and 12 of the petition. There's a letter to the board, from the board to petitioner dated May 21st, 2018, acknowledging the receipt of petitioner's request, apparently to modify the terms of his probation. One second. I would like to note on the record that the petition, which is the third exhibit that you have in your packet today, is listed as a petition for reinstatement and modification of penalty, and the check mark made by petitioner was, I am requesting modification of previously imposed discipline, specifically the modification eliminating drug testing, dependency support meetings, and quarterly psychotherapy. Therefore, the letter dated May 21st, 2018 is acknowledging the receipt of this petition. This letter is followed by a letter from the petitioner to the Board of Behavioral Sciences dated May 17th, 2018, which is requesting his petition to reduce the terms and conditions of his probation. There's also a letter from Tamika Blaisdell, spelled Tamika, second word Blaisdell, Blaisdell, MALCSW, to the board, dated January 15th, 2020, recommending the termination of petitioner's therapeutic sessions. This is followed by a letter from Tamika Blaisdell, same spelling, MALCSW, to the board, dated July 1st, 2019, recommending the reduction in the rate of therapeutic sessions for petitioner be reduced to once every 3 weeks. There's an updated letter of reference from Michelle, MICHELLE, Ellen, Bess, BESSE. She's an LMFT and registered play therapist supervisor, and the program coordinator for the Sacramento County Alcohol and Drug Services Program. And this letter is dated January 28th, 2020. There's a letter of reference from the same woman, Michelle Ellen Bess, LMFT, RPT supervisor and program coordinator, dated June 27th, 2019. A letter of reference from David, D-A-V-I-D-A, Seamon, S-E-M-O-N, Assistant Division Chief of the Sacramento County Probation Department. This letter is dated January 30th of 2015. There is a letter of reference from Jesus, J-E-S-U-S, Cervantes, C-E-R-V-A-N-T-E-S, PSI-D LMFT with the County of Sacramento, dated February 4th, 2015. A letter of reference from Lori, L-O-R-I, Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R, LCSW, Health Program Manager, Division of Behavioral Health Services, Sacramento County, dated May 10th, 2018. There are certified court documents for the matter People v. Hassan, H-O-S-S-O-N, David, D-A-V-I-D, Hooper, H-O-O-P-E-R, Sacramento County Superior Court, case number 14T as in Tom, 02756, and the certified court document for People v. Hassan, David Hooper, same spelling, Sacramento County Superior Court, case number 10T as in Tom, 00961. The final exhibit in this packet is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order effective November 21st, 2018, revoking the marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 79118 issued to petitioner with the stay of revocation. The previous disciplinary order, effective July 28, 2016, remaining in full force and effect, except that petitioner's probation was extended for 1 year. The stipulation includes the attachment of the petition to revoke probation dated June 5, 2018, the previous stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, effective July 28, 2016, and the accusation number 200-2014-001380, dated October 14th, 2015. At this time, I offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Ms. Heim, are you offering the entire packet as a single exhibit, or are you offering it as 4 individual exhibits?
No, I am offering it, I'm offering it as one exhibit, Exhibit 1. I refer to the separate attachments as exhibits, but it's actually one packet with each attachment.
All right. Mr. Hassan, you have a copy of what Ms. Heim just walked us through behind the green paper there. Do you have any objection to the board considering any of the documents?
No, sir.
All right. Exhibit 1 will be admitted without objection.
Thank you.
Anything else at this time, Ms. Heim?
Sir, Judge Gavin, only objection I have, I just want to make sure to the board that I'm trying to petition for early termination. That's my goal here today. So I just want the record to reflect that. I don't want it to be misconstrued. I understand that I'm trying to get modifications, but I'm pursuing to get early termination. That's my goal today.
All right. So your objection is you want to clarify that you're actually petitioning for early termination of probation.
Correct, sir.
Rather than
Modification.
for modifying the terms.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, Judge Gavin.
That's not an evidentiary objection, so I have to overrule that. However, your comment is noted for the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else at this time, Ms. Heim?
Yes, at this time I will read a summary of the petitioner's discipline history with the board.
Okay.
And his probation compliance. Petitioner's discipline history consists of the following. Petitioner was issued licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 79118 on or about February 19th, 2014, and said license was in full force and effect relevant to the charges brought against him. Petitioner was convicted of the following. On July 14th, 2014, he was convicted of misdemeanor DUI, driving under the influence. On September 29th, 2010, he was convicted of misdemeanor DUI. On January 2nd, 2001, he was convicted of passing a completed check with intent to defraud. On March 3rd, 2004, a statement of issues was filed in case number A as in Apple, P as in Paul, 200416. The order issued a marriage and family therapist registration to petitioner. The registration was immediately revoked, and he was placed on probation for 3 years, effective March 11th, 2004. On August 10th, 2007, Mr. Hooper successfully completed probation. The grounds for this action was his January 2nd, 2001 conviction of passing a completed check with intent to defraud. On October 14th, 2015, an accusation was filed in case number 2002-014-001380. The order issued a marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 79118 to petitioner. The license was immediately revoked, and he was placed on probation for 5 years, effective July 28, 2016. The grounds for this action were his July 14, 2014, and September 29, 2010 misdemeanor DUI convictions. On June 5, 2018, a petition to revoke probation was filed in case number 200-2018-002004. Petitioner violated conditions 5, 9, 11, and 16 of his stipulated settlement. It was ordered that Mr. Hooper's probation be extended by 1 year, effective November 21st, 2018. The tolling history consists of the following. Petitioner's probation was tolled from July 28, 2016 through January 10, 2018, and again from July 3, 2018 through March 4th of 2019. The expected end date of his probation is September 21st, 2024. The modification history is as follows. Petitioner has no modification history, and he is requesting the elimination of the following terms: biological fluid testing, dependency support, and therapy. Petitioner has also noted on the record today that he is requesting early termination. Petitioner is in full compliance of his probation, and he is not represented today by an attorney. His psychological evaluation was completed on November 16, 2016, when he was deemed safe to practice with the recommendation of Al-Anon or a similar program for individuals with family members who drink, and supervised practice for at least 12 months. He is fully compliant in his psychotherapy quarterly reports, and his therapist recommends eliminating therapy. He completed supervised practice on October 7th, 2019. 12 months of supervised practice is recommended by the psychological evaluator, and the 12 months were completed on October 7th, 2019. Mr. Hooper completed remedial education on July 20th, 2017. He is fully compliant with biological fluid testing and the dependency support program. He is fully compliant with his cost recovery requirements and made payments current through January 29th, 2020. As of the writing of this memo, it may be updated today.
I understand.
The standard current terms and conditions, including the quarterly report and reimbursement costs, he is fully compliant, and a notice was issued to the petitioner on November 4th, 2019 for reimbursement. Payment was due on September 21st, 2019, and he has made payment current on January 15th, 2020, with the exception of any modifications noted today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else at this point, Ms. Heim?
I will reserve until after the petitioner's statement.
All right. Mr. Hooper, first of all, I need to apologize. I think I called you Mr. Hassan earlier, so my apologies.
No problem, sir.
Would you
It
like
happens
to
all the time.
would you like to testify on your own behalf?
I have a statement I'd like to read so we can proceed. And
All right,
then
if
I'll be
that's-
ready to proceed when you guys are ready.
If that's the case, I'll have you raise your right hand.
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under the penalty of perjury, that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. When you're ready, you can give your statement. Please keep in mind that when people read, they tend to speed up. And also, please speak directly into the microphone so everyone can hear you. With that said, you may proceed when you're ready.
Well, thank you, Judge Gavin. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to petition for early termination of my probation. I'm embarrassed, ashamed, but very humbled to go through this process. I understand now that I'm held to a certain code and high standards as being a therapist as well as a role model. I made a huge mistake and a lapse of judgment when I drove under the influence. I'm grateful that I didn't hurt no one else or myself. There was a lot of emotional harm done to myself, my family, my reputation, and I worked very hard to rehabilitate myself to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's all I have to say right now. So just wait for the board to proceed.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Ms. Heim, would you like to proceed with questioning?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hooper, do you have any criminal convictions that the board is unaware of?
No, no, ma'am. The only criminal conviction that I have is what the board is aware of.
Thank you. So is it correct to say that there are no current criminal or civil charges pending against you in this state or any other state at this time?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. What factors do you believe led to your discipline?
I think the factors that led to my discipline is kind of what I explained in my statement, is that my role as a therapist and a role model, I'm held to certain standards where even my personal life can affect my professional life. So I learned that, and through counseling and working in this field that I work in, when you were reading all those reference letters, it just made me realize how much support I have with my colleagues and people that wrote those letters when I was going through this process. So I don't know if that answered the question, but.
Thank you. So based on the support that you're talking about and the work that you've done, do you believe that there is any factor that would cause you to repeat the behavior from the past?
No. And reason being, I feel I have been rehabilitated because I have done everything in regards of the statements of issues and the board has deemed for me to do. I've done the psychological evaluation, and in the psychological evaluation, there were some recommendations and personal things that the evaluation thought that I should work on. I worked on those. The therapy is very therapeutic for me. I go to therapy all the time. I was going to therapy before I had this incident happen to me. I had my own personal therapist at the time, but I had to go find another one because the board wouldn't let me keep the one that I had. So I've always been a firm believer of therapy since grad school, and that has always helped me. And I think being in this field, it's very helpful to have your own personal therapist when things, life stressors and emotional stressors come about. So it's just normal to me. I did the educational class. I completed that. The drug testing, I completed that. I would do that frequently. It's very expensive. A lot of anxiety. I never experienced anxiety before except for taking that MFT test. And this is probably the second coming of it, going through this process with the board. So it's very stressful, a lot of anxiety. You know, I wake up, call, check in. It's like my life now. Go to meetings, make sure I'm going to the meetings, make sure I'm staying in compliance, make sure I'm in compliance with the payments. Some barriers for going to the testing, and I have to call early in the morning to make sure there's a male staff available because it's observed at most of these clinics, and you know it's mostly female based, so it's kind of hard. So I have to call and check around. Luckily, I've been able to do that, and got to the point where I know the guys now. Hey, is so and so there? Is Doctor? Yes, me. I got to come in today. So I completed that. This whole experience has just been a good learning lesson for me. I'm a little nervous. I'm sorry. My thoughts are all over the place. I thought I would be able to come up here. But, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, to clarify though, you were talking about therapy. So you're currently working with a therapist now?
Yes, I'm working with a therapist now. I've always been working with a therapist. Also, when I was told and I didn't have to work with a therapist, I worked with that therapist just to, for maintenance check-in. I did that personally on my own, just to kind of keep in touch and, stay on point and just stay emotionally stable, just with life, because this process I've been going through has been very stressful. So, yeah, I've always been a firm believer of therapy.
Thank you. And you mentioned meetings. Are you talking about AA meetings?
Yes, AA meetings, NA meetings. I go to those twice a week. They're very therapeutic. It's a lot of things I learned in AA. I talked to my therapist about this, and we ask questions like, oh, am I an alcoholic? I don't think I'm an alcoholic. I don't think I fit the criteria for alcoholic. But going to AA meetings and doing meetings, I have applied some of the steps that the meeting has. So, for example, like step 2, came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore our sanity. So I'm a faith-based type of person. So without prayer and a lot of understanding, I probably wouldn't be able to go through this the way that I have gone through it. I use step 4, where it says making and searching fearless moral inventory of ourselves, where that principle was like responsibility. You take ownership of what we are, as well as our thoughts, feelings, and actions. When I went through this process, I was very upset with myself. I looked in the mirror and I had to fire myself because I wasn't doing a good job by my lapse of judgment and for what had happened that day. So also step 10 I used before, could take personal inventory when working promptly admitted with a principle of commitment to pledge ourselves to maintain honesty and integrity. So with that, kind of like what I spoke about earlier about having a certain integrity as a mental health therapist, we're here to help people, and I'm hoping that I'm trying to be a change agent while I'm working in this field as well. So I am looked at as a role model, even though it may seem like it's not, but I believe that I am. So I have to role model for my kids and clients that I work with to let them know that this is possible and you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. So AA meetings have been very helpful. So I use some of those steps.
Thank you. Do you have a sponsor?
No, I don't have a sponsor.
It sounds like you said you talked about the steps with your therapist?
Yes.
Okay.
So I talk about the step with my therapist and family and friends. Yes.
Thank you. Other than AA and working with a therapist, do you have any other support groups that you are a part of?
The other support group, like I said, I'm faith-based church. My friends. I have a travel support group, but I haven't been able to travel because it's been so expensive. So I've just been watching those guys. But other support group, and the coworkers and the people that I work with, they've been very supportive. My supervisors have been very supportive. She wrote that letter of reference at the time when this incident happened. I was working with the probation department. The chief of probation wrote that letter for me, which I'm very humble about, because when this incident happened, I went in there to tell him what was going on, and he already knew. And so we had a conversation about that, and I'm very fortunate and blessed that he was able to write a letter for me at that time. This was a chief of police, of probation, excuse me. So I was very humbled by that. And then my supervisor at the time, he wrote a letter for me as well, because I wanted to be very transparent on what happened with that incident and how I made a very bad decision. So he was very helpful in that. So my support system pretty much is the people I work with, and have been helping me out through this whole process, not just with this board stuff, but just working. So I have a very good support system.
Thank you. Do you have a sobriety date?
I don't have a sobriety date, but I know it's been over a year, and periodically when I was told off and on, I didn't drink. I didn't have to drink. So I don't have a sobriety date, no, because kind of like I explained earlier, I don't believe that I'm a alcoholic. I don't believe I met the criteria for that. But I don't have a sobriety date. But I know I haven't drank, and it's been over a year since I've been drug testing. And when I drug test, I test negative for substances.
Thank you. So just to clarify, you're saying that you haven't had a drink in a year?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Over a year.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to say before the board starts questioning you to assure them that you would merit early termination? I have one more question for you about modification, but I would like to know what you have to say about why they would consider early termination.
Well, I will hope that the board would consider that, because I have been rehabilitated, as I stated. I completed all the psychological testing, the educational course, go to the meetings, the therapy. My therapist agreed that I should terminate therapy. And even if I'm going to terminate therapy with her, it doesn't mean that I won't do therapy. I'm a strong believer in therapy. I'm always going to do therapy for the rest of my life. There's no way that I'm not going to do therapy. Not working in this field and not just being a human being, a person. There's no way I cannot do that. So I'm just hoping that they will reward my early termination, because I have met all the terms and conditions of my probation, and I feel that I'm rehabilitated and I've done everything that I needed to do. And I think I'm safe to work with the public. And I'd done the supervision. That was one of the requirements, and I completed that. And my supervisor, Michelle Bessie, was very nice to supervise my supervision for that time. And I'm fortunate for that too. And she's been a very good support system as well.
Thank you. Final question. If the board decides to go with the original petition and look at modification of terms, could you please just one more time talk about the specific terms that you would like to see modified if that's the direction that the board goes?
If the board does go that way, like I said, I'm always open to doing therapy. I feel that if they want me to do the modification, I'm hoping that will not happen, because this is and the drug testing be eliminated. But this process is very expensive. It's been several times where I was very weakened, where I almost wanted to give up my license just because of the financial stability of it. And then I had to think and work through this process, of course, in therapy as well, to not give up. So my resiliency is to not give up my license, even though for a costly mistake that I made, which is, I probably spent over at least $30,000 in this whole process. And I've been going through this for a while, from being untold, then getting told for supervision, then becoming untold again, then getting supervision again, going to the drug testing, 8 months here, then getting told, then finally getting everything going on board where a year has gone by, been doing the drug testing, getting caught up with the cost recovery payments, the reimbursement payments. It's a lot of information. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to do this. Wait, I need to do that. Oh, I'm not sure. I thought I was doing that. I thought I was in compliance with that. I'm not in compliance with that. So it's a lot of information. And I know I signed it and said that I will follow those stipulations, but it's a lot and to deal with. And I think that I have done that. And my goal is to get off of this probation.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you. Do the board members have any questions? All right. Would you like to start at my left or my right? Let's start at my left.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Hooper. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
And I just want to say we're all nervous, even though we sit up here and sort of as board members, we're nervous too. So just want to acknowledge that this morning. I do have a couple of questions though.
Okay.
And my first one is, could you explain a little bit more to the board why we should grant your early termination? What I've heard so far from you is that being on probation is burdensome and expensive, which we understand, and that's an inherent part of the process.
Correct.
But you have focused a lot on sort of compliance and what you've done, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to hear from you some other rationales for why the board should consider granting early termination from you besides the fact that you've complied and that it's inconvenient.
Okay. Well, I feel that it should grant early termination because I think I'm ready to get off the probation period because I've done a lot of hard work. Like I said, I worked very hard in therapy with my therapist. We worked a lot about me. One of my personal therapy goals was boundaries. That's something that I lacked and I think was part of my lapse in judgment. Is setting boundaries for myself as well with other people. When this incident happened, I was with a friend, associate, and I should have made better choices and set boundaries and not prevent this from happening. And it's a long-time friend, but again, this has been one of my things. Main goals is to work on boundaries, and I've done that and set boundaries with myself as well with others. I feel like sometimes when you have relationships with friends, sometimes you tend to outgrow them sometimes, depending on the friends that you have or associates. And I think as I progress and grown as a person, I'm trying to grow in my profession as well. And so I think sometimes the past friends that I had, I think I kind of outgrew some of those behaviors and old things that we used to do. So I had to move on. And so boundaries has been one of my main things that I've focused on. So I think that in itself is one of the reasons. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say regarding that. And then also, like I said, I've gone to the meetings and the meetings have been very supportive. I go twice a week. I haven't drank alcohol over a year, and I just feel that just with the hard work and the process and my resiliency of going through this. And then I also have some coping mechanisms where I try to relax. You know, I go to the gym, I work out, I listen to music, movies, theaters, hang out with my daughter, massages if I can get those, and just quiet time, beach, lake, bike ride, simple stuff. I'm not sure.
No, that's helpful.
Okay.
I appreciate that. And it sounds like you have been working really hard with your therapist around sort of maintaining your own self-care and managing boundaries. Could you help the board better understand through the work that you've done with your therapist, how you understand your relationship to alcohol? Because when you say boundaries, I hear that there may be a tendency there not to take as much relationship for sort of your responsibility for drinking. So could you help me better understand your relationship to alcohol and what you've learned in therapy about that?
Well, with my relationship to alcohol, what I learned with therapy is not to do it or not be under the influence and driving of alcohol. There's other alternative ways if I'm going to engage in social gatherings. And I just want to clarify, one of the reasons when this event happened is it was more of a celebratory event. And so we was out celebrating, so I could have made better choices and set boundaries by maybe calling an Uber, getting a Lyft, or riding with a friend that doesn't drink and doesn't designated driver, or having a plan. I had a plan that night, but it wasn't my plan. It was somebody else's saying, let's do this, do that, and that's where the boundary comes into effect, setting boundaries. So in regards to setting my relationship with alcohol, definitely have boundaries with that, where it will not interfere with my life and control my life and mess up my life, where it will affect me professionally and socially.
Okay.
I hope I answered that question.
No, you're actually doing a great job. Thank you very much.
I'm just, yeah.
So you mentioned that you drank about a year ago. Do you remember when that date was? When specifically that was?
I think it was before I became, I think like March 4th, March 3rd. Was Sunday brunch.
Of what year?
Last year, I think it was.
2019?
2018, I'm sorry.
Okay, March
But we're
2018?
2019, yeah, 2019, I think. We're in 2020, right?
Correct.
All right. So it's been once I was notified that I was had to start drug testing and doing that, I stopped drinking.
Okay. So it sounds like, and you can clarify me if this is incorrect, it sounds like you drink socially.
Correct.
And if you weren't on probation or if you didn't have that requirement on your probation requirements, you would continue to drink.
Correct. I would drink
Accurate?
socially, but I would not drive. I would not put myself in the same situation that I had prior to this.
Okay. So I was actually looking through the amount of time that you've been on probation, and with your tolls, it looks like you've actually only been on probation for a year and a half of the 5, now 6 years that you are required to be on probation. Would that be accurate?
I don't know if it's accurate. I thought it was longer than that. I thought it was maybe at least 2 years.
I think it's a year and a half. I just did the dates.
Okay.
So you've actually been on probation for about a year and a half.
Even with including the tolling and untold, because I was told twice.
Yes.
Okay.
That's accurate.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess that is correct then.
Okay. Can you talk to us a little bit about what are some of the other skills and tools that you've learned sort of to just manage sort of life and just sort of deal with the challenges that exist from just being a human being and just living in this world? So what are some other tools and skills you implement?
So like I said, therapy. I'm always going to go to therapy. So I go to therapy, other things, and like I said, I spend time with my daughter, I work out, I go to the gym, beaches, bike riding, continue education. I'm always willing to learn. I like going to seminars, getting CEUs. I'm trying to learn Spanish right now. That's really one of my goals by next year is to learn Spanish. I knew it in high school, and I just totally forgotten it. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to look at what I wrote for my coping skills because I wrote a lot of stuff down. But those are some of the things that I do. Like I said, I'm faith-based. A lot of spirituality. Talk to my family, my friends, and my support system that I work with. Very supportive with one another and the job that we do. But I also do some self-care. So I like to travel. And like I told you, I'm part of a travel group. So I live vicariously through them. Guys that I travel with, people I travel with, they post their travels and to different countries and where they've been and thinking about retirement, down the road, 10, 15 years, hopefully, we'll see. But stuff like that, I do a lot of self-care. I try to make sure I take care of myself. I think it's very important.
Thank you. That's actually very helpful. Have you and your therapist talked at all about, I'm sure you're familiar with sustainability plans. It sounds like
Yes.
you really have no intention of getting another DUI, even though you probably will drink socially once this process is completed. Could you help us better understand sort of, what a plan might look like for you if you're drinking? Like, what do you plan to do to ensure that you don't get another
Well,
DUI?
if I'm going to drink socially, first of all, I'm going to have a designated driver. I have several friends that don't drink, even though they don't act like it, and they don't use drugs, but they act like they're doing. They're just like that way. But I will have a designated driver. I will make a plan to use Uber and Lyft. I have 2 accounts for those. If I do, I will just make sure that I've set boundaries with myself in regards to being socially with people, because when these incidents happened, they were both socially events. The one that happened in 2010, it was a social event. It was celebrating, I just bought my house, and that was a lapse in judgment. So learning from my mistakes from the past, this time I will always have a plan set in place, or just not drink. It's not that I can't drink. I have gone several times without drinking in regards to alcohol. I don't have a relationship with it like that. I set strong boundaries when it comes to that, because I definitely don't want to be in this predicament again, and I don't want to risk my health and endangering someone else in the public. So I will not do it. It is not that important to me.
Second to last question. What does your support system look like? As you know, in the use of drugs and alcohol, there can be a strong tendency to want to white knuckle it and just sort of take care of it and do it yourself. But I'm wondering who is in your support system that understands the challenges that you have with alcohol and sort of would hold you accountable so that you don't drink and drive. So what does
Well,
that look
I
like?
do have some people that are in sobriety. One of my close friends I grew up with, his name is Ishmael. He doesn't drink, so and I will never white knuckle it. That is not the cure all to white knuckle and think you can conquer this. So I have support system people that are in sobriety who don't drink, and I can go and hang out with them if need be. If I need to talk to them, I have friends, neighbors. My one neighbor told me, she's like, "Why you didn't call me? You could have called me and came. I could have came and picked you up." So, and my family, my sister. So I have a strong support system.
Okay. And I'm just curious. So how old were you when you began drinking? Like, when did you first develop a relationship with alcohol?
Probably in my late 28, 29.
Okay.
Late, not really a drinker. I just made a lapse in judgment and drank too much in that setting and hanging out with people. So I think it was 28, 29.
Okay. And how would you describe yourself through the course of your relationship with alcohol? Would you say you're a mild drinker, you're a moderate drinker?
I would say mild.
Mild.
I would say mild.
Okay. All right. Thank you. For
And only for social settings. But even though this was a social setting and it was a bad lapse in judgment, I definitely have a plan, a safety plan now. I know what to do. This is not, trust me, this is not going to happen again. This will not happen again.
Okay.
I promised myself this when I fired myself.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Hooper. How are you?
Good morning, sir.
Just a couple questions. I was wondering if you could explain the circumstances surrounding the tolling periods in your probation. Why there were 2, the nature of the time.
Sure. Well, the first time I got the place I was working at, it was a PUF, a psychiatric facility. They had lost their funding. So I had to retreat from that position, and I only had done 6 months. So then I was sitting there waiting because I couldn't get any supervision anywhere else until my supervisor, which is my current supervisor, they wanted me to do groups and do things of that nature. And I told them I cannot do anything unless it's approved by the board. So she wrote a letter saying that she would supervise me, and then I was able to do groups. But the first job that I had, I worked 2 jobs. It was at a PUF psychiatric facility out in Roseville, and I had to, and because of my DUI, I had to get qualified by the Department of Health and Human Services. So I had to finish this big packet out, explain everything, and then they approved me. And so the lapse in judgment, I think the company had lost their funding, and I had to stop that job. I had to end that job, and I didn't. And then I only did 6 months of supervision. And then till the second part where my current supervisor was willing to supervise me because they wanted me to do psychoeducational groups.
So the first toll looks like it was about 1.5 years.
Yes.
So for that entire time, you couldn't find supervision?
I couldn't find any supervision. It was very frustrating. So I was trying to find it. And then I got a new supervisor at my job. And then she was willing to do that because they wanted me to do educational groups, psychoeducational groups.
Okay. You know, I've listened to what you've been saying while you've been up there testifying, and I noticed that I keep hearing about, you know, an event, an incident, a lapse in judgment, and my concern is that this wasn't a singular event. There were 3 convictions, 2 convictions for DUI. Both of those DUI convictions came after you had been disciplined by the board previously and completed probation. In addition to the 2 DUI convictions, there were violations of the probation for an alcohol test, as well as practicing clinically without notifying the board.
Right.
So, you know, when I hear that, you know, you feel that, you know, you don't have a problem, there was a lapse in judgment, it was an error on your part, it just happened at a social event, I'm seeing a pattern of behavior that can be concerning, especially if, you know, you're going to be practicing in the state of California with the general public. So without, you know, oversimplifying the question, what makes this time different? And I don't want to come off as being rude, but it seemed that there's been, again, a pattern of maybe lapses in judgments and incidents and events.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, why is this time different?
Well, and then let me explain about the notification of not notifying the board about when I got that job at the PUF Center. It is my fault because I should have made sure I had the proper paperwork and the supervisor written the correct information to move forward so the board will grant it. There was I didn't do that correctly like I should have. This is why the second time when I got it, the supervision, I made sure that I corrected it by not doing anything until I got approved by the board. So the first time, yes, I did not do what I was supposed to do because I know it says that in the statement of issues, you have to notify the board within 30 days, you have to do this, you have to do that. But there was some lapse in time of trying to get the information from that current supervisor where I worked at because they were going through a lawsuit about losing their funding, which is no excuse. I should have done that. But the second time when I did get supervision, I didn't do anything until I made sure that it was approved by the board first. So in that regard, I made sure that I made a correct statement that second time going around. In answer to your other question,
I'm more concerned, not so much with the notification of the board, that is an issue, but of the driving under the influence, the relationship with alcohol that seems to be apparent
correct.
Through at least what you've been, you know, what you were arrested and convicted of. So I'm more concerned with your answer to why this might be different than.
So it's going to be different. The reason why it's going to be different now is because I've learned and grown from these experiences. I've been through counseling. I've been through the therapy, going through these drug testing facilities, getting up every day, calling at 5 in the morning, making sure they're there, making sure I'm in compliance with my payments, making sure I'm doing my quarterly reports, making sure I get the psychological evaluation, making sure I do the counseling therapy. So I've learned and grown from these experiences. Now I have a safety plan. Now I have set boundaries with myself and with others, and with this relationship with alcohol, not letting simple stuff like a social gathering dictate and control or where it has me in unforeseen circumstances like today. I've grown and learned from this. So
How much does it cost for you per month to do the drug testing?
the drug testing, probably about $500 a month.
What other costs are associated with your current probation?
Therapy,
And how much do you spend per month on that, on therapy?
maybe about 500 as well. And then I have to pay the cost of recovery and the reimbursement as well.
Approximately how much would you say per month that is?
The cost recovery is $100 a month, which I found out, and then about $200 a month. And I also completed all my DUI requirements. I went to the 18-month program, second offenders. I completed that. I had the breathalyzer installed in my car. I completed that. I had to pay for that. I completed that. Got my license with no restrictions. I have a clear license right now. I'm done with that. So my main reason wanting to get off too is because career-wise, when people see DUI history, sometimes that might hinder my growth and moving forward in my career. So, but I want to assure the board that I have learned and grown from this experience and that I have a backup plan. I have plans and that this will not happen again. I've done everything that I needed to do. I think I'm ready. I got supervision. I'm continuing to go to counseling and therapy with my therapist. I have a good support system. To answer your question, Mr. Ross, it's different now.
Have you had your convictions expunged?
No, I can't have them expunged because it was a probationary period, and I wanted to try to get all this stuff in paper saying I'm off of this, I'm off probation, I'm off of that, and then I was going to try to go forward and get it expunged.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Ms. Wong.
Yes. So let's see, where do I start? So now, what the dependency support group, did you say that you only go to AA?
I go to AA, NA, Life Ring, which is secular recovery, and then smart recovery. So I go to different ones just to mix it up. I mean, I think it's good to see different groups and support groups.
Did you go to Al-Anon?
I haven't gone. I've been to Al-Anon before. Yes, I have.
How many times you've been to, have you been consistently going to Al-Anon?
No, I've been consistently going to AA, NA, and Life Ring and Smart Ring.
So are you aware that that's recommendation from your, one of your recommendations for you to attend the Al-Anon meetings?
I have attended, but I haven't been attending as much as those other ones. No, I was not aware of that. No.
Okay.
I thought they said dependency support meetings, and I thought they meant AA meetings and NA meetings and secular recovery and smart recovery and like that. And I have gone to Al-Anon, but not as much as I have gone to those other meetings.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Now, some more questions.
Yes.
So, so let me put it, kind of look at, your, some of the timelines.
Okay.
So, so you've been on probation for a while, but you also told it for a while. So the last accusation, to extend your probation was because of the, using alcohol and also the supervision, which we clear. Now, you accepted the, the proposed, the stipulation, in on September 28th, 2018, which is, more than a year and a half ago, right? Is it correct?
Yes, it sounds
Yes.
about correct. Yes,
And
ma'am.
you also mentioned that your last drink, the last time you drank was in March 3rd, 2019. So are you saying that, during the tolling time, you were still using alcohol?
occasionally on social events I drank socially, but yes, I did occasionally, but I did not get in any trouble. I did not get any DUIs. I was abiding by all the laws and requirements, and I did not get in any trouble. So if you're asking me if I drank while I was untold, yes, socially, yes, I did.
Okay. So, okay, and thanks for admitting the fact that, you did use use alcohol during the tolling time. Now, my other question is that I also keep hearing you say that I do not meet the criteria, for being an alcoholic. What makes you different than an alcoholic?
Well, I can't say well, let me think about that, because I work in this field. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, and I work with clients. And so I can't say that I'm any different than an alcoholic, because that would be very judgmental. What I can say is that alcohol does not control my life and dictate me from doing what I want to do as far as living in my career and me working as a person and as a therapist. I can say that. But I don't want to say that what makes me different, because I think alcohol is an addiction. I think it's a disease, and I don't think I'm suffering from that disease.
So are you saying that, that's from the perspective of the physical addiction, that you don't consider alcohol dictate your life?
I wouldn't say physical addiction. I would just say, because it's more emotional too when people drink and why they use alcohol. So of course there's some physical symptoms to that, where they might have some DTs and nauseas and things like that, which I don't experience because I don't drink like that. But emotionally, people, alcoholic may drink because of having emotional problems and issues. That's just my speculation.
So I think I'm going to save the question for the rest of my other people, but I have one more,
Sure.
last one.
Did I answer that question for you, I hope?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you did. You provided a good answer. So my question is that since you are a drug and alcohol counselor and you are a therapist,
Yes.
so there is always the tendency, for the, for those who use substance, to minimize the issues.
Correct.
So where are you on that?
In regards to me,
Yes.
I don't minimize alcohol or minimize use. I know how dangerous alcohol can be, and I know the effects of it can really wreck a person. So I don't minimize that in that train of thought, no. Because as a person, we have life situations that everybody go through. And anything can trigger somebody to do whatever they're going to do. But making, what I've learned is to make better choices from these experiences. I learned from going through this process with the stipulation is the disciplinary action that the board has given me. I have learned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wong.
Take a deep breath. Hi. It's hard, right?
Yes, it's very hard, but I get it. So I want to say that I understand that you guys are asking these questions, and very right so, because you want to make sure that I'm able to do this job, and I'm able to be out here and be safe to the public. And I want to prove to you that I am from going from these experiences. I know my past doesn't look good, and I think that's a good idea that Mr. Ross said about getting this stuff expunged, because even though you have a past, it still haunts you in the future. So even though I can sit up here and tell you I've been rehabilitated and I learned from my mistakes, the fact that I have this written on paper is a mark. I'm still being marked and targeted. So I made a promise to myself. This is to me, not, and so I have an oath that I made to myself. By being a therapist and coming here and working with people in this field and seeing the troubles of addiction, I made an oath to them to try to help. And making this oath, I'm working on my own personal stuff as well. I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm not going to make this mistake again. this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen again. You will not see me no more for anything. But my record in the past makes it look a little diminished. I mean, with the stains on it, so to speak. So I'm sorry, Leah.
No, that's all right. Thank you.
And thank you for letting me take a breath.
Yeah. I have a couple of things. One thing that I'm a little bit confused about.
Okay.
You had mentioned that during tolling, you occasionally went to therapy. And it's really interesting because the letters from your therapist, one of them said, the one from January 2020, that you requested to continue sessions while tolled. And then the one from July 2019 said, except during periods when tolled. Can you explain? I just am not clear if you got therapy during toll or not, because
I did
the
get-
unsigned letter
right.
says you didn't.
No, I did receive therapy while told. My therapist doesn't know what told mean. And I had to explain, I was like, this is stop, pause.
Okay.
So yes, while I was told, I was receiving therapy, and that was my request, because I was like, hey, I want to still continue talking to you and checking in with you and while I'm going through this process. I thought it was very necessary for me to do that because I was going through a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Just this whole process, like, hey, well, where am I going to get my supervision from now? Now what I'm going to do? This job, the first time I got this job, didn't turn the paperwork in time, didn't let the board know 30 days that I prior to or after the job that I'm supposed to do this. They're losing their funding, boom, it's gone. I was fortunate that the board gave me the 6 months. I'm very appreciative of that. So then I had to wait and be like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So that was one of the reasons why I request to keep having therapy. Sort of kind of like Mr. Maddox said, self-care and, just going through life and trying to figure out again how I'm gonna pay for this again when it goes back on. It was a break where I didn't have to pay, but it wasn't a good break. Either one of them, because it's like this stuff is still impeding me. I still have to get this done. It's still not dealt with. So that was a lot of anxiety and frustration. And again, I was very upset with myself, very upset with myself because, I know my potential. No one else knows it, but I know my potential. And I know I could be good at what I do. And that's what I'm striving to do, to try to be good at it and be a better person as well.
Thanks. Another question I had was, during the tolling period, how did you understand what that toll meant and what you were allowed to do and not allowed to do?
Well, at that point, I had read my stipulations. I really dug into it and was like, okay, you can't do this, can't do this, can't do that. So while I was told, as long as I didn't commit any crimes, did anything, law-abiding citizen, doing what I was supposed to do, which I normally am doing, and if I just do what I'm supposed to do, try to figure out what's my next step, and trying to get this petition and trying to get my probation back on, becoming from told to untold. I was just trying to figure out what's the next plan and what I need to do.
Okay. So in a way, correct me if I'm wrong, you felt like the toll was a time for you to, it was like being off of probation during that toll. So it was okay for you to drink and...
No, I didn't feel like it was okay. I didn't feel like, what I felt is that I wasn't held to any restrictions to do anything board related. So when the board said that I'm told, I just was trying to figure out what my next plan is. And so I may have drank at, I think around that time, a social function, Super Bowl or I don't know, out with a friend if I decide to have a beer. But when I was untold, I just figured that I wasn't obligated as far as anything with my license was concerned, but I also wasn't going to jeopardize anything as well. If that answers your question.
Yes.
Because I wasn't going to risk doing anything lapse in judgment as I did before
Okay.
and make a bad decision
Okay.
and go out where it would cause me to get another DUI. I wasn't going to let that happen, and I'm not going to let that happen again.
Okay. I believe that you're not going to let things happen. I want to challenge you to consider that while you may not meet the DSM-5 criteria for alcoholism, I probably would agree with that based on what you've described, you might have a problem with alcohol still, right? There's a possibility of having a problem with alcohol without being an alcoholic. And I say that because you drank when you were told, because you have multiple DUIs over time. So because you've had lapse in judgments in the past, which I hear you're going to prevent from happening in the future. So I just want you to consider, as you continue therapy in your future, in whatever way you decide to do that, to explore that with your therapist, because it's been really hard for you to follow rules around sobriety in this process. And so while you might not be the fall down drunk kind, you don't have those problems, you might still have an issue with alcohol. So just consider that.
I will consider everything that you said and look into that, but I disagree with you. I don't think I do.
All right.
I don't think I do. But, I will take everything that you said into consideration.
Good morning. I think some of the questions I had have already been addressed. I just had one question. Between the 2010 and the 2014 DUIs, were there any steps that you took during that time to address, other than what was mandated as part of your court requirements? Were there steps that you took then, and then how is that different from after the second one?
So can you repeat the question? Because it was like a two-part. I heard some of it, but can you repeat it for me? I'm sorry.
Sorry, sure. I was just wondering, after the 2010 DUI, what steps you took to address any issues outside of court-ordered requirements, and then how is that different after the second incident?
Also, the steps that I took outside of that, are you saying with the board or just in general?
Personally.
Personally, well, I kind of took a look at the DUI and how and why it happened. I looked at what happened, what was the surrounding factors around that. When I got the DUI, around that time, I was going through some emotional problems as well. So what I've done to deal with that was continue therapy. I had just went through a breakup with my kid's mother at that time. So I went to therapy for that. I also talked it over with my pastor at my church and seek some assistance from them. And I have gone to meetings occasionally during that period of that time as well.
Good morning, Mr. Hooper. Thank you so much for being here. Actually, since we're really heavy on the left today, so I feel like all the questions have been asked, so I really don't have any further questions. But thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
I just had a very quick question because as with Mr. Disposti, I agree that most of the questions have been asked. But there was a 6-month period where it appears that you were working, and this is when you had been told, but you were told on July of 2016, and then you notified the board in January 2018 that you had returned to work. but in fact, you returned to work in June of 2017. So was there a 6-month period there that you were working with, basically under your license
No.
without, okay. Could you
Yeah,
talk to
because
me
I had two jobs. So
Okay.
the second job where I was working at a psychiatric facility was where I was getting my license. My job that I had didn't require me to have a license.
Okay, so the job that you had for the 6 months didn't require your license?
Yes.
Okay, I got
I've
it
been at
then.
the same job for
Okay,
17 years, but
Right.
what I, what I want to say, the duties didn't require me to be licensed. So that's why the other job for 6 months, that's when I lost that job, that's when I had to stop getting the supervision because I needed the license for that.
okay, because the fact that you violated the terms of probation and didn't notify that you had gone back to work, what you're saying is that you went back to work, but you weren't working with your license. You weren't
Correct.
working
I
under your
wasn't
license.
working with my license because it was two separate jobs.
Okay, I think I got it.
Okay.
Thank
Does that
you.
make sense?
Yes, I think it does.
This job I have, my current job, I didn't need my license as far as to do the job duties. The other job that I had for 6 months, and when they lost their contract, and then I didn't report to the board in time, that's the job that I did for 6 months, and I had to stop.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's a lot. It's it's a lot.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On. You can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you for coming in, and I'm going to confer with my colleague that I think the questions or any questions I might have had have been asked.
Oh,
So, thank you.
thank you.
You're almost at the end of the gauntlet. And we keep saying good morning, but it feels like it's already late afternoon, doesn't it? It's a long day. I want to check with you a little bit about your conversations about your attendance to AA meetings, NA meetings, and the other meetings you had mentioned. You had mentioned going twice a week. And I would be curious about what your interactions are with other participants who do identify as alcoholics and are attending the same types of meetings you're attending on a regular basis.
What are my interactions? Well, I talk to them. We talk about the steps, and like I said, some of the steps I identify and I worked with while I'm going through this process. So I'll sit and talk to them about that, about my process and what I'm going through. And so I have some friends and support in those meetings. So pretty much talk about the alcohol addiction.
Okay. You had mentioned that you do not have a sponsor. What was your choice, your thought process in deciding not to get a sponsor?
Well, it's like my process is it's not like I don't have a sponsor, because I look at a sponsor as a support system. So I look at my thought was that I'm going to those meetings, I'm talking to people, I'm interacting, and I'm engaging in those meetings, and I just never thought maybe that I needed to get one because I was in there and actually working and talking and dealing with people in meetings. Don't really have a thought process of saying that I don't need a sponsor. But I have gone and tried to learn as much as I can from the process and things that I'm going through right now.
And what would you say your experience of working the steps has been?
I think it's been pretty good. I think I've done pretty well. I think I've done pretty well, and I can relate to those steps in the 12-step process because I'm working on myself personally, and I'm trying to grow emotionally and as well with this so-called relationship with alcohol.
Okay. So this is going to sound really nitpicky, but I just want to
No
understand
problem.
for myself. You say you relate to the steps, but there's a process in AA called working the steps.
Right.
And between those two, I hear a lot of space. I also understand in the AA program that one of the ways we work the steps is by having a sponsor who helps guide us through each of those steps and help us in that process. And so I'm I'm curious about this distance between relating to steps and working steps. Can you help me understand that a little bit better?
Okay, I think I have worked the steps because, as I explained before, step 2, I did came to believe that there's a greater power than ourselves to restore. I've been working on that step because I'm very faith-based. I believe and been thinking that I can have guidance, and I pray about this stuff. Step 4, I take responsibilities for my actions and what I've done. I'm not proud of it. Like I said before earlier, I was very upset with myself about making these bad choices and lapse in judgment, where I looked in the mirror and fired myself. And, now I'm trying to rehire myself, saying, okay, now you can go. Now you've done everything that you need to do. So I have been working the steps. In step 10, continue to take personal inventory when wrong and promptly admit it. So I admitted that I made a mistake and I have lapsed in judgment. And I know my commitment to not let this happen again. So I have been working the steps.
Okay. So moving on to another aspect of recovery that you had mentioned, you had been attending some SMART recovery meetings. Could you tell me what your experience of that was?
It's different than AA and NA because they don't do the big book. So people are just really in there listening and more supportive without the steps, because sometimes 12 steps is not for everyone. That model doesn't work for everyone. But with the Life Ring and Smart Recoveries, it's different. They're more support, and they talk about the addiction process and ways of coping and how to deal with alcohol.
So if I mention 4-point program in relation to SMART recovery, what does that mean to you?
Well, again, with the SMART recovery, I've gone to maybe 1 or 2 of those meetings. I switched the meetings up just to get a different mix of everything. I don't go to just one. I like to go to different meetings. And so I can't really answer the SMART recovery when I have gone to those meetings, but I mostly like the Life Ring more than SMART recovery.
And I'm not familiar with the Life Ring process. Could you explain that to me a little bit more?
Well, Life Ring is it's recovery support groups where people meet for substance use, but it's not faith-based, if that makes sense. It's a secular recovery. So it's not faith-based, and they don't do the 12-step model. It's a little bit different.
Okay. Moving on to a separate subject, earlier on when you were first presenting, a couple of times you mentioned that your understanding now that you were going to be holding yourself at a higher code of conduct, that you felt that was part of your role as a therapist. Could you help me understand a little bit more what you mean by higher code of conduct?
Well, when I say higher code of conduct, I mean that I have responsibilities and I'm obligated to make better decisions than I have in the past. When I say I'm held to a higher standard, I mean that I'm working with people and trying to help people, and I need to also work on myself and continue working on myself.
Thank you. That's all.
And then for sobriety, for smart recovery, what it is, and Life Ring, they're the sobriety that emphasis on decision making, and it's not religious or spiritual in nature. It's an alternative to spiritual base and addiction recovery.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I do have one follow-up question. So I too, at the very beginning, understood you to say that you worked 2, 4, and 10 on the steps.
Yes.
And you keep referring to, I've worked the steps. So I guess I'm trying to clarify, you have worked all the steps and you heavily emphasized 2, 4, and 10?
Right, yes. Those
or
are the ones
did
that,
you just work on 2, 4, and 10?
No, I heavily emphasize on 2. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, I forgot you were over there.
Want me to repeat it? Okay. So I have heard you reference steps 2, 4, and 10. But my question is, have you worked all the steps and then you went back and you continue to work on 2, 4, and 10? Or is 2, 4, and 10 considered the steps you've worked on?
I worked on all of the steps. 2, 4, and 10 is the ones that I really identify with this situation that I'm going through.
Okay. Thank you
But
for the
I worked on
clarification.
all the steps.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right, any other questions from the board?
I don't have a question, I have more of a statement. Is that okay?
Okay.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hooper, I want to once again thank you for your time today. We really appreciate sort of hearing the steps that you've taken to support your rehabilitative process. One thing I'm noticing is that although you mentioned when I asked you questions earlier that you don't white knuckle it, I would disagree. What I'm hearing a lot of is a focus on compliance of the rules and expectations. But what I'm not hearing is how you connect with other people to help them support you maintain sobriety and make good decisions. So irregardless of what we decide today in terms of sort of your request, I would encourage you, even as a therapist, you're a practicing therapist, to understand the benefits of connecting with other people, building safe relationships, and being vulnerable so that they can support whatever goals you have, whether it's not drinking or not drinking and driving or exercising or whatever it is, because there is a fundamental benefit to that. And so I would say that is just one of the things that my assumption is my colleagues are not hearing also. And that's why we continue to ask some of the questions we ask, specifically around having a sponsor. To us, that's a big part of maintaining sobriety and making healthier choices, especially when you struggle with alcohol. So please consider how you could build relationships with other people, safe and trusting relationships with people who could help support your process moving forward. But I want to thank you again for coming in today and hearing all of the steps that you've taken to sort of bring change into your life.
Thank you, Mr. Maddox. I appreciate that comment, and I will definitely do that.
All right, any other questions from any board members? Seeing none, Ms. Heim, any follow-up questions?
I just have one. I just wanted to clarify for the board. I heard a lot of questions about trying to determine the drinking that you said you did socially. Was it only when you were told? It sounded like you were talking about when you were told that there were occasions that you drank socially, but when you were on probation, I wasn't quite sure if there were also situations where you drank socially while you were actually on probation. Could you clarify that?
No, I did not drink socially while I was on probation. While on probation, I try to maintain and adhere to the rules.
Thank you. Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, Mr. Hooper, anything else you'd like to add on your own behalf?
No, I just would like to thank the board for their time and giving me this opportunity to come forth. And I appreciate the information and the feedback. Just want to let you guys know that I do take everything that you say into consideration. And I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to present. And I hope that my recommendation will get granted. Thank you.
All right, thank you. In a moment, I'm going to ask whether the matter is submitted. And by that, I mean, are you satisfied that you've had a full opportunity to present all argument and evidence on your behalf? Ms. Heim, is the matter submitted?
Yes, submitted.
Mr. Hooper, is the matter submitted?
Yes, sir.
All right, then the matter is submitted. This case is closed and we are off the record.
Thank you.
Now would be an appropriate time to take a 10-minute morning break. So let's come back at 10:20. All right, if I can have the crosstalk end so I can go back on the record. Thank you. All right, are you ready? All right, we are on the record in the petition for reinstatement or modification of penalty to terminate probation of Chevelle Marie Borden, being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, OAH case number 2020 020017 and agency case number 2002-0160-00452. My name is Sean Gavin. I'm the administrative law judge assigned to hear this case. Can I take the appearances of the parties, starting with counsel?
Good morning. This is Patricia Weber-Heim, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California under Government Code Section 11522.
Just say who you are.
Chevelle Bordone.
And you are appearing today without the assistance of counsel, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. We need to, and with my apologies to the board members, for each of these hearings, we're going to need to go around and say your names and establish that the folks here constitute a quorum. So starting on my left, can I have the board members just identify themselves?
Jonathan Maddox.
Ross Ehrlich.
Christina Wong.
Leah Brew.
Strack?
Max Disposti.
Betty Connolly?
Deborah Brown?
John Sovek.
It's been previously established that these members constitute a quorum. Ms. Borden, you heard my explanation at the beginning of the day, and you've now had the opportunity to watch a different petitioner conduct a hearing. So please keep those things in mind. So it's clear your petition will proceed in a similar way. I'll invite Ms. Heim to present the petition packet to the board and orient them as to what's being requested in the procedural history. I'll then we'll swear you in and ask you to provide any testimony or documents you'd like to provide. We'll then open it up for questioning, first from Ms. Heim and then from the board members. Any questions about any of that?
No, sir.
All right. Ms. Heim, are you ready to proceed?
Yes.
All right, you may.
Thank you. I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the following petition packet offered by the petitioner. The board members and the petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit. I have paper copies of this exhibit should board members wish a copy of it. However, it is the same as what you have electronically. This exhibit consists of the following attachments. The petition for early termination of probation dated June 13th, 2019, with the attachments which include the authorization for the release of confidential records dated June 13th, 2019, a 2-page typewritten explanation by petitioner answering questions 8, 10, 11, 12, and 13 of the petition, pages 3 through 6 of the statement of issues dated February 23rd, 2017, a certificate of recognition from the Santa Clara County Innovative Partnership dated September 7th, 2018, a computer printout of a course transcript dated May 29th, 2019, a letter of recommendation from Angelina, Angelina Hernandez, Hernandez, MA, Program Director of Pathway Society, Inc., Mariposa Residential Program, dated June 11th, 2019. A letter of reference from Catherine, Catherine Adams, Adams, LMFT, dated May 30th, 2019. A letter of reference from Michelle, Michelle Chung, Chung, LMFT, dated June 5th, 2019. Michelle Chung, same spelling, MFT resume. And a letter of reference from Mary, Mary Crocker, Crocker, Cook, Cook, D Ministry, LMFT, LPCC, LAADC, ADS Program Coordinator, dated May 29th, 2019. This is followed by the successful petition for modification of probation, decision and order in case number 200-2016-000 452, dated October 17th of 2018. This is followed by the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order effective May 30th of 2017 with the attached statement of issues in case number 200-2016-000-452, followed by the notice of hearing to petitioner dated January 30th, 2020, and the certification of licensure history. At this time, I would offer the packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Ms. Borden, you have a copy of the packet in front of you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to follow along as Ms. Heim walked us through the documents?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any objection to the board considering any of those documents as evidence in this case?
No, sir.
Exhibit 1 will be admitted without objection.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Heim, at this point?
Yes, at this time, I would read a summary of the petitioner's discipline history with the board and her probation compliance.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Petitioner's application was denied on May 25th, 2016, due to 6 prior convictions, which occurred between 2003 and 2007 for battery, resisting arrest, assault with a deadly weapon, false imprisonment, being under the influence of a controlled substance, and dissuading a victim/witness from making a report. The board filed a statement of issues on May 2nd, 2017, and adopted the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which issued petitioner a registration, immediately revoked, stayed, and placed said registration on probation for 3 years with optional and standard terms and conditions, effective May 30th, 2017. Petitioner's probation was tolled from May 30th, 2017 to July 9th of 2017, and her updated expected end date is July 9th, 2020. Petitioner successfully petitioned the board to modify her probation terms effective October 17th, 2018, which reduced her biological fluid testing frequency to 1 time per month, reduced her 12-step meeting participation to 1 time per week, and reduced her psychotherapy frequency to 2 times per month. Petitioner is requesting early termination of probation and is not represented by an attorney. She completed her psychological evaluation on December 14th, 2017, and was deemed fit to practice independently with safety to the public, with no additional recommendations. She is in compliance with her psychotherapy quarterly meetings, I'm assuming. She completed her remedial education on June 29th, 2018. She is in compliance with her biological fluid testing and her dependency support program. She's also in compliance with the standard terms and conditions, including quarterly reports and reimbursement costs. Thank you. At this time, I will reserve questioning, until after the petitioner makes her statement.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Borden, do you wish to testify on your own behalf?
Yes, sir.
I'll have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right. You can testify keeping in mind that the board has had the opportunity to review your petition, and they're particularly concerned with any rehabilitation that you've demonstrated since the original discipline. Go ahead.
I want to thank you guys for letting me come here today. I have done all the recommendations from the board for my probation. When I went to San Jose City College to enroll in the remedial class, I found out they had a LADAC program. And so I probably wouldn't even have known that if I hadn't went down there for the remedial class, which I live approximately 2 blocks from that school as well. So in the last 2 years, I actually was able to finish that program and all the required hours for practicum. I've submitted to the board, well, everything's online nowadays, so it's a screenshot from CCAP The circles that are filled in indicate I've submitted these documents, and then a check mark inside the circle means that they've been processed, I guess. And so I've turned in everything necessary for the LADAC. I'm just waiting on CCAP. Unfortunately, they're not as fast as the Board of Behavioral Sciences, and and so they do take a long time to verify everything, but I've completed all the educational requirements, all the fees, letters of references, everything that is necessary. So I'm just waiting to get a testing date for my LADAC. I'm currently still working on my hours for my LCSW test, so I can take that as well. And I'm asking to be off probation a little bit early. I think I'm over in a few months, but I do work for a nonprofit in Silicon Valley, and so every little bit helps. My drug testing is approximately, I paid $137 in a fee, about $55 to test, $190 a month. My individual therapy is $100 a session. Additionally, I do go to Narcotics Anonymous, but being that I work for substance abuse, I see a lot of former and future clients at these 12-step meetings. And so although I go to more than one a week, I typically don't pull out my meeting slip to be signed for the board, because it just, being viewed as a professional in the field is part of the change process for them to have treatment, and it's just a little awkward, I guess. I'm actually getting more into service now. So if you saw my meeting slip from last quarter, you'll notice that I probably went to 2 or 3 meetings even in a day, because I was selling tickets for an event that I was on the committee of and in service to, and that's really fun, and I really enjoy doing that. And so I just like to be able to continue my recovery in a way of less constraints and more creativity, I guess. And that's all. Thank you.
All right. The record should reflect that the document that you submitted has been marked as Exhibit A. Ms. Heim, any objection to Exhibit A?
No objection.
Exhibit A will be admitted without objection. All right. Anything else at this point, Ms. Burden?
No.
Ms. Heim, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Do you have any criminal convictions that the board is unaware of?
No. I've not had any convictions since these, and I'm expunged for these.
Thank you. What factors do you believe led to the discipline? What was going on with you?
To my criminal history?
Yeah.
Well, I started using methamphetamine at the age of 15. So my brain wasn't fully developed. I was already being seen for and labeled with various depression, bipolar, and so there's the self-medicating factor, and also just the stage of my development of my brain and decision-making capacities at the time. I even used crystal meth with my father, my biological father. And so I used methamphetamine for about 10 years, until about 15 to 25, and I injected it for the last 5 years. And so all of my court cases stem from my methamphetamine use.
Thank you. Why do you believe that you wouldn't repeat your conduct today?
Well, even before applying for my ASW or even college, I had already stopped using substances, and I just have a life today that I don't need to change the way I feel or use substances at all. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I have my self-actualization, that I just have a life free of that need.
Thank you. I think you explained this in your statement, but I wanted to ask you again to clarify why exactly you wanted a termination of the probation.
Well, there's a financial the financial piece. There's also, so I'm a single mother of two, and since I've been on probation, we tried to take a vacation. I think in 2018, we went for one day to LA, to Universal Studios, and I literally had to leave the park to go drug test with my children, and that was kind of hard. And so you never really know when you're going to be called to drug test, and it really prevents me from doing a lot. My oldest is going to be 18 on April 1st, and for his birthday, he wants to go to Disneyland.
Thank you.
Ms. Borden, you can take a moment. We have other matters on calendar, but there's no reason to rush through this.
It's okay.
Take your time.
I think you have also said a lot about this already, but I would like to hear from you what you have learned during your probationary period that will assist you in not repeating your conduct.
Well, I learned a lot also in the late act program. I learned a lot about the disease of addiction. I've learned a lot about how the brain works and the limbic system. I've learned that I'm an addict regardless of the substances. Like, I currently go to the gym sometimes twice a day. And so if it's scratcher tickets, first it was school, and then it was volunteering. I was on the board of the Tulare Rescue Mission. I started a chapter of the ACLU in Tulare County. I was on their board. I was volunteer at Hands in the Community.
Ms. Borden, can I just have you go 10% slower so
Okay,
the
sorry.
court reporter can hear you?
So it was school, and then it was work and food, and right now the gym. And so I do know that addict behavior and a disease manifests in a variety of ways. And so that's probably one of the most important things I've learned.
Thank you. So can you talk to me about your support structure that you have in place to assist you when you encounter difficult situations?
Well, I have a home group, which is an NA meeting that I go to every week. I have a support group of women in Narcotics Anonymous. I have a sponsor. I have my family. I have 2 supervisors and my therapist. I call those 3 women kind of my committee. So when I'm facing something difficult, I usually get an input from all 3 of them for perspective, and then I make my final decision.
Thank you. So you were mentioning going to meetings. NA, do you go to any other of the groups?
I've gone to a few AA and a few CMA, but I prefer Narcotics Anonymous.
Do you have a sobriety date with them?
Oh, I think it's January 2nd, 2008. But when I got clean, I didn't know I was getting clean, and I didn't know I was going to do any of this at all. And so I never really marked it down, but that's the day that I celebrate.
Thank you. Do you have the same sponsor?
Actually, I have a new sponsor because my sponsor relapsed, so I'm on my 3rd sponsor.
And how long have you been with that sponsor?
Since November.
How do you communicate?
She's at my home group. She's a co-secretary of that meeting. She lives in my neighborhood, and she's my friend on Facebook and text.
Thank you. So do you have any specific coping skills that you would like to share that you use to deal with all life, being a mom, being a recovering addict?
Well, right now, the gym is awesome. I do Zumba, I do body pump, I do Insanity, and I do U-Jam. And in the morning, when I feel like waking up and going, I do a little cardio on the treadmill. But I mean, I still take bubble baths. I like to cook. I talk to my support group.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board, starting on my left?
Good morning. How do you say your last name?
Bordone.
Bordone. And I want to say thank you for coming in today. And I just want to congratulate you on the life change that you have made, that you have maximized and are maximizing this second opportunity that you have to not only improve the quality of your life and that of your family, but to also begin to give back and to support people who may be in a similar situation. And so that is just admirable. And I just want to congratulate you on sort of all the progress that you've made. And just thank you for being here today and sharing your story. When we look at wellness and recovery models and people beginning to build a life worth living, a life that's so large and full that the need to engage in substance use is unnecessary, I think you could be the poster adult for that. And so I just want to applaud you for that. It is just remarkable to hear what you've done and what you've accomplished. So thank you. And I was going to ask you a question about your relapse plan, but you have talked so thoroughly about it. I think it would be redundant to actually do that. So I don't have any questions for you. I just want to say thank you for coming, and please continue to on the path that you're on. We need more practitioners in the field that have a grounding and sensitivity to sort of the realities that people or the clients that we serve struggle with, along with the clinical competence and the expertise to be able to help them walk out of it. And so I just am excited that you're doing what you do, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. Thanks for being here. I don't want it to sound like a cop-out, but I second, everything he says without repeating everything. It's in my line of work as a criminal defense attorney, I oftentimes, either represent or witness people in similar situations who do not come anywhere close to the rehabilitation that you made. So congratulations with that. Just a couple questions real quick. My first question is I know it was very brief. I was wondering if you could explain the reason why the probation was told for a couple months in the beginning, if there was any explanation for that.
Yes, I'm originally from Tulare County, which is located between Fresno and Bakersfield. It's a large rural place. Also, when I graduated and turned in my initial ASW application, it got lost in a drawer. I had a different person or something, and I actually called Kim, and I think I left her a voicemail of So it took a while for me to get my license. In the meantime, I have a commercial driver's license that I got, and I was driving a bus and kind of waiting. And then when I got my ASW, I applied all over the state for more opportunity, and I was brought to San Jose, and so that's where I found my place.
Okay, got that. And I know that you had mentioned in your statement that you had made amends to the victims in your crimes. I was wondering if you would feel comfortable sharing, how that went or what your experience was with that.
Well, the victim of my crimes was mostly my mother for batteries, and she knew I was on meth. And so in Narcotics Anonymous, we really make what it's called living amends. And so for my mom, she wouldn't want me to replace a window that I broke or anything like that. She would just want me to live a better life.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for sharing.
Good morning. And thanks for coming to show your presence, to the board. And I want to thank you for showing your authenticity, when you talked about your children, that basically, the emotions that, you failed them because of the drug test. I could feel, that's, how important it is, to be the best mother you could be. And so, so I want to thank you for that, and good job. So, and then I also saw that when you talked about, your drug and alcohol program, I almost see that, I saw that, all these firework, all these, insights and, just that excitement, right? That I see. So I want you to share a little bit more, apart from just what you learned. Mostly really it's about like that insight you have in terms of the co-occurring. That's the population that you're sharing. So obviously it seems like the drug and alcohol program really kind of brought some more depth to your substance abuse and how it relate back to you using substance as a self-medication. So I want you to just share a little bit more if you don't mind.
So with me, one of the many diagnoses that I had was ADHD, and I've learned that some people are cortically understimulated and they seek stimulation, and therefore I did a stimulant, and I was gravitated towards stimulants. Not that it was exclusive. My disease is very opportunistic. So when people had heroin or cocaine, my disease said, okay. And so I learned a little bit of the biological model. Right now, I work at a facility using the ASAM criteria and dimensions, and we have 3.1 and 3.5. And my purpose is to the co-occurring population. And sometimes it's difficult. Even the clients, they want to know, well, what came first, this disease or this disease? And really, the treatment is the same. We're still doing RAT plans. We're still using cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm certificated in the implementation of the Hazelton COD CBT program. And one thing I've noticed is when you have an acutely mentally ill client in the facility, the clients actually do well, but sometimes the staff don't. And the staff are more in crisis about this client than the clients. And I've noticed a lot of barriers to treatment. I know there's parity laws, but even outpatient providers that have both services, they need releases to talk to each other. And this doctor is prescribing this medication without talking to the mental health side. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the field grow and merge. I would like the BBS to absorb CCAP, and let's just do that now too. I mean, it's all in the DSM, right? We use the same book. And I think it's a very, very high need. I see different statistics. I'll see 65% have co-occurring, and it's like we're there, but we're not there yet. And I really hope that I'm in the field to be there and be a part of it.
So your focus is really not just about how the etiology of the whole mental health or substance abuse, but you treat them just like what's presented to you. Mm-hmm. So you do the same model for your self-reflection. You just kind of like look where you're at and stay grounded, or how do you treat yourself?
Well, and like even the DSM is really deficits based, and with me, me and the clients, I like to use strengths based. So even my addictive personality, yeah, I had straight A's in grad school, and I was club president in my bachelor's degree, and you can use those strengths. I've had clients that were homeless. I mean, shopping cart, tying 3 shopping carts together, and it's like work at Food Max. You can push shopping carts and you get their union. Tell them you have experience, and they get jobs. And I've had delusional clients that write the best creative writing stories. Like you would never even think that it could be a movie. I mean, almost everything that they see as broken, as a defect, as something that's wrong with them, you can turn that into a strength. And we can focus on deficits all day, but I really like the strengths perspective.
I believe in that too. So, but I also want you to help us understand, through this rehabilitation process, what do you think is your biggest strength growing out of it?
My biggest strength? Anxiety. No, healthy to where I will read everything. I will double check everything. It's not like debilitating where I don't leave my house. There's anxiety at a natural level that's productive, and I just try to do my best in everything. And I might worry a little bit and overthink and bug people in my support group, and they'll tell me, "You're overthinking it," and I'll tell them, "If you fail to plan, you plan to fail," and they're like, "No, you planned."
Very good. So how are you managing your anxiety right now?
I'm breathing.
Good, very good. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in and being vulnerable, and congratulations on completing the certification process up to the exam. So good luck on the exam whenever you get that approval. Just one question. So you mentioned how good you are at overdoing, and you talked about some of the things that you like to do to try to slow down, like taking a bath or probably spending time with your kids. But how do you check yourself to make sure you're not spinning out of control, like at the gym, for example, since the gym is your current favorite thing to do?
Well, one thing is, everything can be taken to the extreme. Like, doctors will tell you to drink so many bottles of water, but you can literally drink so much water that you can mess with the salinity in your brain and die. And so I always try to look at like what's within normal ranges and where that line is between, okay, this is healthy and this is not healthy. And for example, I met with a psychologist at Kaiser for my weight, and then she was like, well, how much do you exercise? And she told me, like, clinically 4 hours a day or more is where the line is of obsessive. And then personally, I try to stay in my body. So at the gym, I'll hold the little bars with the plates, and it'll tell you like your heart and the range and if it's okay. And like, I don't take pre-workout, or I take a multivitamin only. I know where it's healthy and where that boundary is, and then I stay away from the other side of that.
So it seems like what you do is you try to get a professional opinion about what's healthy and normal, and then you're like, okay, I need to stay within those limits.
Especially if that's not my specialty at all. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a physical therapist or an exercise person. And so they know about my diet and what I eat. And
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good morning. I think the questions have been great so far. I don't have any further questions. I just want to thank you for being here, and your recovery and your hard work has been really admirable.
Likewise, I just wanted to add that it takes a lot of, I like what Dr. Leah was saying about vulnerability. You're 2 months away from ending your probation, yet you put yourself through this. And it's an emotional undertake, and it definitely shows though what you are in your process, on being able to share with pride all the achievements that you came so far to. And I think that I hope you see what we see as well. It looks like you do in regards to the gift that you are giving back to this community, not just as a therapist, but also in your profession, your volunteer and professional everyday experience. So that's really nice to see. So thank you for sharing that and for making us part of this journey with you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming back. Thank you for coming back. A year and a half ago, when we modified probation, it's always nice to see that someone comes back a year and a half later and says, and I did this really great thing in this last year and a half. So congratulations to you for using probation in a very positive and life-affirming way. And you're just doing awesome work, and I hope you stay in the field and continue to do awesome work.
Me too.
Good morning. It's still morning, right? Yeah. Thank you for doing what you do. Not only do you bring the experience, which is so needed in the profession, you bring humility. I can only imagine being one of your patients. And when you mention exercise and the gym, your smile is this big. And so you're automatically making your dopamine levels go up just talking about it. And so I think that's great. And I think that your insight and your ability to know who you are, and you're so young, is really an asset not only to yourself, but everybody around you. Congratulations on all of your success.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just starting off with the basics of NA, do you have a chip or a coin?
Can I go get it?
You don't have
Well,
to.
first one, you just, I guess that's a yes.
Yes, it's in my purse. It's actually a key tag. I keep the just for today, the white one, to remind myself that's all we have is today. Regardless of how many years you have today, and we're not immune. And I have the today one, and then I have the multiple years one, and those are the only two that I really keep on me.
But you have them attached to your keychain and
Yes.
keep them with you? Okay, thank you. Just a curiosity too, you had mentioned during your LADAC training that you had learned a lot about the biological and neurobiological effects of meth on the body. And then you also mentioned that you've had 3 sponsors who have relapsed.
I've had 3 sponsors, but my last one relapsed.
Last one
My
relapsed.
first one was in Tulare County, and then I moved up to San Jose, and I found a new one, and she relapsed last year. And what I upgraded someone from my support group. She's an LCSW, and so she has a very unique perspective that not everybody in Narcotics Anonymous has, of being a professional, working in the field, identifying as an addict, and going to the meetings, but still being a professional. And so she understands a lot of what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm. So understanding the new education you have and really understanding methamphetamine, how it works in a body and a brain, and having experienced relapse from someone who's part of your support system, what are the pieces inside of you that are going to keep you aware of that potentially becoming your path?
Well, and I think everybody always has that potential. Whether you've never used a substance, you always could one day. Whether I have 10 years clean, that's always something that can happen. I worry about when I get older or when I have a surgery, because I am having a surgery coming up. And so even though opiates were never my thing, I know that they have a very, very highly addictive potential. And so, for example, with my surgery, I talked to my sponsor. I have somebody in our support group that's going to be holding my medication and bringing it to me every day. And then I've had them talk to their sponsor about it. And now my sponsor is going to talk to their sponsor about it. And so I'm never complacent. I'm always vigilant. I'm always aware. I've already gone through some very difficult things in my recovery, and I've seen people also go through difficult things. My father just passed away in December. He's one of the ones I used with, which was a very complex emotional ordeal, and I'm the only one that can really pay for any of the funeral expenses, and it was a lot, and I have my support group, and I didn't even think about relapsing. So I know I'm not immune, but I'm always vigilant.
Thank you, that's all.
All right, Ms. Bordone, first accept my apology. You're the second person whose name I mispronounced in some way. Maybe when we get to Ms. Mills, I'll finally get it right.
You're
Ms.
forgiven.
Ms. Heim, do you have any additional questions at this point?
No.
Ms.
No, I
Bordone,
do not.
Pardon me, do you have anything additional to add at this point?
If you can inform me of the decision as soon as you can, that'd be great. That's it. Either way, whatever the decision is, no pressure, but I know you have 30 days.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anything else?
That's it.
All right. In a moment, I'm going to ask whether the matter is submitted. And by that, I mean, are you satisfied that you've had a full opportunity to present all evidence and argument on your behalf? Ms. Heim, is the matter submitted?
Yes, submitted.
Ms. Bordone, is the matter submitted?
Yes, sir.
And the matter is submitted. The case is closed, and we are off the record.
So we can stand up and stretch, but we're not going to take a break. We're going to roll right into our next
All right, the next hearing will be Ms. Gall. Everyone ready? All right, we are on the record in the petition for reinstatement or modification of penalty for termination of disciplinary action or reduction of probation terms of Jacqueline N. Gall, being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences. It's OAH case number 2020-020-018 and agency case number 2002-016-001-229. My name is Sean Gavin. I'm the administrative law judge presiding over this matter. Can I take the appearances of the parties, starting with counsel?
Good morning. Patricia Weber-Heim, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
And Ms. Gall,
Hello,
just state who you are.
my name is Jacqueline Gall.
Can you make sure that you either pull the microphone toward you or move toward it yourself?
Yes, my name is Jacqueline Gall.
Thank you. And you're proceeding today without the assistance of counsel, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. As I said previously, I need to ask each board member to identify themselves to establish a quorum, starting on my left with Mr. Maddox.
Jonathan Maddox.
Ross Ehrlich.
Christina Wong.
Leah Brew.
Max Disposti.
Betty Connolly.
Deborah Brown.
John Sovek.
Thank you. It's been previously established that these members constitute a quorum. First of all, how do I pronounce your last name?
You pronounced it correctly, thank you.
Okay. Terrific. We got it right. Ms. Gall, you've now had the opportunity to see two other petition hearings, and you've also heard my comments at the outset. But so that your record is clear, we'll proceed as follows. Ms. Heim will present the petition packet to the board to orient them as to the prior discipline and the contents of your petition. Then we'll turn to you to testify and or present documents on your own behalf. And then we'll ask for questions first from Ms. Heim and then from the board members. Keep in mind that the board has had the opportunity to review your petition packet and that they are particularly interested in any rehabilitation. Any questions about the process?
No.
All right, Ms. Heim, when you're ready.
Thank you. I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence Exhibit 1, the original petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and the petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit. Exhibit 1 consists of the following: the petition for early termination of probation, dated January 6th, 2020, with attachments including the petitioner's letter of explanation dated December 27th, 2019, a letter of reference from Philip Philip Sherwood Sherwood, LCSW, dated December 16th, 2019. Also included is the resume of Phil Sherwood, same spelling. Letter of reference from W. Robert R.O. B-E-R-T, Brunson, B-R-U-N-S-O-N, LMFT, Clinical Director, Sun Street Centers, dated November 26th, 2019. Letter of reference from Joyce, J-O-Y-C-E, Davis, D-A-V-I-S, AMFT, dated September 27th, 2019. Letter of reference from Megan, M-E-G-H-A-N, Cleveland, C-L-E-V-E-L-A-N-D, M-A-L-M-F-T, dated March 9th, 2019. Letter of reference from Barbara, B-A-R-B-R-A, Humphreys, H-U-M-P-H-R-I-E-S, C-A-D-C 2, dated October 7th, 2019. Letter of reference from Gabrielle, G-A, Messina, Messina, dated March 12th, 2019. Employment contact information for employment since revocation, and the certified court documents for the matter People v. Jacqueline, Jacqueline, Nicole, Nicole, Gall, Gall. This case is from Monterey County Superior Court, case number S120162A. This is followed by the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order effective November 1st, 2017, granting petitioners registration as a marriage and family therapist intern, immediately revoking said registration and placing it on 3 years probation with terms and conditions, along with the attached statement of issues dated January 24th, 2017, in case number 2002016001229. This is followed by the notice of hearing to petitioner dated February 4th, 2020, and the certification of license history. At this time, I offer the packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Ms. Gall, were you able to follow along with the documents that Ms. Heim walked us through?
Yes.
Do you have any objection to those documents being considered by this board as evidence?
No.
Exhibit 1 will be admitted without objection.
Thank you.
Anything further at this time, Ms. Heim?
Yes, at this time, I will read a summary of petitioner's discipline history with the board and her probation compliance. Petitioner was issued an associate marriage and family therapist registration, AMFT 102973, on or about November 1st, 2017. The registration was in full force and effect at all times. The registration is current and will expire on October 31st, 2020, unless renewed. On January 4th, 2016, the Board of Behavioral Sciences received an application for a marriage and family therapist registration from Jacqueline Gall. The board denied the application on May 18th, 2016, and issued a statement of issues on January 24th, 2017. The statement of issues was based on a March 7th, 2012 conviction of Vehicle Code Section 23152A, driving with a blood alcohol level in excess of 0.01%, and Vehicle Code Section 2800.2A, evading a police officer. The statement of issues was filed on January 24th, 2017, and the board adopted the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which immediately revoked, stayed, and placed the petitioner on probation for 3 years with optional and standard terms and conditions effective November 1st, 2017. Petitioner has no tolling history, no modification history. Petitioner is requesting early termination of probation and is not represented by an attorney. Petitioner completed her psychological evaluation on December 6th, 2017. The psychologists made the following recommendations. Upon becoming licensed, having a second evaluation to determine if supervised practice is required at that time. Attend psychotherapy twice per week, utilizing DCBT and biofeedback techniques. Attend a group meeting such as ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, Codependency, Women's Issues, etc. This type of group was to be attended at least once per week, and she was to continue attending a minimum of 3 dependency support group meetings per week. Petitioner is fully compliant with her psychotherapy quarterly reports, fully compliant with her dependency support program, and has completed her remedial education. She is fully compliant with the term and condition to abstain from controlled substances and alcohol and to submit to random drug testing. She's paid in full as of November 16th, 2017 regarding her reimbursement costs, and she is fully compliant with the standard terms and conditions of her probation, including filing quarterly reports. Thank you. At this time, I will reserve questioning until after petitioner's statement.
Thank you, Ms. Heim. Ms. Gall, do you wish to testify on your own behalf?
I do.
I'll have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. You may.
Hello. Thank you, everybody, for this opportunity. I do feel honored, and I do believe that this is going to be a learning experience. I like to look at good news and bad news as congratulatory moments. I do want to start off and say that I am grateful for the probationary status of my intern number. While it has been a struggle and very difficult to check my phone every day to see if I have to drug test, to go to therapy, to be compliant in attending my 12-step meetings and Al-Anon meeting every week. Remembering when I have to turn in a quarterly report. I think the biggest struggle I had with all of this is that this is all public record. And though I got my record sealed, this will still be public record. And so I've learned to really cope with that sting. So it's desensitized now. And I'm in acceptance of the public record of this. And I think that really going through this whole process, waiting 19 months for my intern number to be issued, taught me a really big lesson in life of patience. I remember being impatient, checking my P.O. box every day for correspondence. And at one point, I just surrendered to the process, and that I've been able to use in other experiences in my life. And so the silver lining in all of this, because I've actually been in recovery since I was 16 years old. And in college, my senior year in college is when I relapsed, which led to my DUI. And the silver lining in all of this is that since I was in a group home when I was 16 years old, and it was always recommended to me to go to Al-Anon because I have qualifiers in my life. And this forced me to go to Al-Anon 13 years late, 11 years later, because I had to start 2 years ago. And that's my home group in all of this. That is where I find the most in my recovery out of all of this, because my qualifiers are still active in their addiction. And so regardless of the outcome, I am honored to be here today, and thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Heim, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Do you have any criminal convictions that the board is unaware of?
No.
What factors specifically do you think led to your discipline?
The factors I think that led to my discipline is that I broke the law. And I understand some people break the law and they don't get disciplinary action when they apply for their intern registration numbers. I think the factor that, in my case, is that I applied for my intern registration number a little over 3 years after it happened. I was still on informal court probation for my DUI. I hadn't sealed my record because I had to get off the informal probation. So I think it was just too soon, and I have understood and agreed with the decision of probationary status. It has not been fun, but I've been very understanding of, why, because I'm in the helping field, and I would want that to be done to anybody else as well, just to make sure that they're fit to practice.
Thank you. So I think you probably partially answered this, but tell me why you believe that you wouldn't repeat that conduct today.
That is a great question. So when I was 16 years old, I learned about recovery, and I built a solid foundation of relapse prevention and safety planning, support network, and according to our literature, the 12-step literature, relapse is a part of recovery. And I relapsed in college, and I got a DUI when I was in college. And since then, I was able to gain sobriety, and I actually had a lapse in October 31st of 2013. And I woke up that next day. I actually went until 2 in the morning, all transparency. I woke up that next day and I said, what am I doing? I'm in a master's program. I already have a DUI and I evaded. So I didn't like the way I felt. And so this has been my journey, and each relapse and or lapse was a learning experience for me. And I know I don't like to feel that way. I know I don't like to change the way that I feel or put substances in my body.
Thank you. So your petition states actually that you are applying for a termination of your disciplinary status or a reduction of your terms. Can you talk about what specific terms you're asking to be modified if that were the decision of the board?
Yes. Right now, I am doing random drug testing 3 to 6 times a month, and each drug test runs me around $120 to $150. And right now, I'm doing therapy twice a week, and that is cash pay, and I'm paying $170 a week. And I am doing 3 12-step meetings, including Al-Anon, as a part of that 3 a week. And I find that I can be able to implement the recovery skills that I've learned and grown with in the process. I would like more time to be able to utilize those skills and practice the self-care, spend more time with family. So that I would like all 3 of those to be reduced.
Thank you. So can you talk then about what other support system you would have in place if that was actually reduced?
Yes. The same support system I've had in place since I was 16 years old. I have a sponsor. I have a sober support network. I have family. I have colleagues that I've grown relationships with that I turn to for advice. So I do have a very well-rounded support network, and I don't feel alone. I feel like I belong with them.
So if your probation were terminated, you're talking about the support system that you have in place, and you have conditions of probation right now. But what would happen if you weren't on probation? Would you continue with those support systems?
That is a great question. My belief about recovery is that it is person-centered. And so what I like to teach my clients as well is you pick what works for you in your recovery process. And so I personally have always done 12-step meetings. I don't frequent them 3 times a week, though. I have been frequenting them 3 times a week for compliance of probation. But before the probation status, after my DUI, I went maybe once a week, sometimes more if my sponsor invited me or support person said, hey, I'm sharing at this meeting.
Ms. Gall, can you just talk a little slower?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I would definitely continue with my weekly Al-Anon meeting. I would definitely continue with therapy, probably bi-weekly or monthly. And I would continue working with my sponsor. She's been my sponsor since I was 17 years old. And I would continue working the steps as needed. I'm going to start the Al-Anon steps soon. So I like to work my program as, what are my needs? And I like to incorporate all of those because those are really great tools for me.
Thank you. So it sounds like you have a sobriety date, but What is it?
That's a really great question. So December 10th of 2006 is when I entered recovery. That is my first sobriety date. And after my DUI, I had the lapse on October 31st of 2013, and it ended at 2 in the morning. So technically, that was November 1st when it ended. So my sobriety date is November 2nd of 2013. However, as a part of my recovery program, I don't choose to celebrate that day. Some people like to celebrate their birthday and go out to dinner with all of their sober support network. I don't, because I feel like it takes away from my journey, because my journey started when I was 16 years old. So I do acknowledge that day, and that is, I speak my truth on that day. So that is my sobriety date, according to, I have been completely abstinent since November 2nd, 2013.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right. Do the board members have any questions starting on my left?
Good morning, and thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
And I am going to be brief because I am aware that this side of the table has been hogging all the questions, and it's not fair to the fellow board members. So I am not going to ask all the questions this morning. So thank you for sort of clarifying the dates for me. I have a couple questions, though. I'm wondering, can you speak to any stressors that were going on in your life when you were a senior in college, when you had that DUI? Because it would be helpful for us to better understand sort of, you know, what was happening in your life that may have contributed to that day, if any.
Absolutely. Well, I actually lost my mom to cancer when I was 15 years old, and that's before I got sober the first time. And that's why when I was given an opportunity to go to a group home and a second chance in life, I made the decision to change, and I wanted to be successful, and I didn't want to live the life of the path that I was on. So while I was in college, I missed my mom, and somebody actually had spiked my drink at a party. I went to a neighbor's house, so it was a trusted person. It wasn't like a college rager. And one of my neighbor's girlfriends thought it would be funny to spike my drink. And so I reached out to a college professor who told me that is not a relapse because I didn't choose to put that substance in my body. But I acknowledged that, wow, I didn't really feel different. It didn't really make me lose control like I lost control when I was a teenager. So it was kind of that gateway to my relapse. And so to answer your question, after I had relapsed, I had two significant losses in my life. I had lost my great-grandmother and I'd lost my grandfather within 6 months of each other. And my DUI was actually 1 month exactly after I lost my grandfather.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm very sorry for your losses. I know how dear my family members, mother and extended family are to me, so I'm very sorry for your loss. Can I ask a clarifying question about that evening? Because you mentioned that someone had spiked your drink. Had there been any other substance use that evening other than the spiked drink that would help us better understand what happened that evening?
That is a good question. To my knowledge, there was no other substances in that dorm room. I do know that my neighbors were drinking, and I did go over there with my roommates who weren't drinkers. I lived with people who didn't drink. I had one roommate who drank occasionally, but we were friends with our neighbors, and we did go over there, and then they wanted to play a game called Flip Cup, and I said, I don't drink. And I had a sponsor, and I was working my steps. I was very active in my program. I was of service. And they said, it's okay, you can do it with Dr. Pepper. So when I wasn't looking, they had poured vodka in the Dr. Pepper bottle.
I'm sorry to hear that. Those don't sound like very good friends. I apologize for that. Um, but I do have I guess my next question would be, could you help us reconcile sort of the police report stated not only did they smell alcohol, but that they also smelled marijuana? And so when I asked you a minute ago, were there any other substances, you said that you only spoke of alcohol. Can you help us understand where the marijuana smell came from?
Yes, absolutely. Can I ask a clarifying question first? When you were asking about that night, were you talking about in the college dorm room, or were you talking about the night I got my DUI?
The night you got your DUI.
Okay, I'd like to re-answer that question if that's okay, because I was talking about the night in the dorm room.
That's fine, because it's helpful for us to be having the same conversation.
Okay, great. Yes, the day that I got my DUI, I was using cannabis as well. So my relapse consisted of cannabis and alcohol relapse.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And so my last question, because I am going to make room for other people. You mentioned that the sponsor that you had at the time you had since you were 17 years old. So you probably had been in a relationship with that person for about 5 or 6 years or so? For a while. Were you a senior in high school when you were 17?
Yes.
You were a senior in high school at 17?
Yes, I actually graduated.
Sorry, I meant college, because that's when I meant college.
I actually graduated high school early, and I started college at 17.
Okay.
But yes, I have had the same sponsor since 17, and she's still in my life today.
Sure. No, I have a specific question. No, just to clarify, the DUI you got when you were a senior in high school or a senior in college?
Senior in college. I was
Okay.
21.
Okay. Are you familiar with the concept of the 500-pound phone?
Yes.
Okay. So what kept you from calling your sponsor that evening to even keep you from getting involved in those activities? Why the 500-pound phone that night as you look back and reflect on it? And I do realize it was 8 years ago, but I'm just curious, what kept you from calling her?
I do remember that, and I did call her. I was convinced by a peer that using alcohol and cannabis were not bad, and that I wasn't doing the other substances anymore. So I could do it recreationally, and marijuana was starting to be, accepted in regards to like medical marijuana cards. And so I actually had called my sponsor, and I had let her know that I don't feel like I have a problem with alcohol or cannabis, and that I was going to be a normal college student and use those substances.
And I want to thank you for your honesty. So my last question is, so based on that call and the subsequent experience that you had, A, what have you learned from that? And then B, how have you changed your practice so that you can ensure moving forward with your life that if you're ever in a situation like that again, you can utilize the tools and the resources that are there to help support your sobriety?
I wish I would have listened to my sponsor. She told me, we even talked after the relapse, and she said, "It's okay, go to a meeting tomorrow." And I wish I would have listened, because I think I felt so ashamed that I didn't work a perfect recovery program, because I thought that was it. I thought I was done using when I was 16. So I was too embarrassed to go back to my home group and disclose that I had relapsed. So I continued, and it worked for a little while in college. I was able to manage and be functional until I wasn't. What was the latter part of your question?
So not only what have you learned, like cognitively or intellectually grasp, but how has that impacted how you practice or live your life or live out your recovery? Because there's a difference between learning something and then taking what you've learned and applying it to your life. So I'm wondering now, what are you doing differently?
I think before, when I originally worked my program when I was 16, I had a different sponsor when I was 16. And I was told that I had to go to 3 meetings a week, that I had to be of service, that I had to do things a certain way. And it was very confining. And so with this sponsor that I've had for the last 12 years, She meets my needs better because it's more of a choice. She gives me a choice of, do you need to go to a meeting? Do you want to work the steps right now? Do you, want to be of service? And so with that, I'm making the choice for myself now, and I'm applying it that way. And so that's what's working for me. And I choose to do those things. I choose to sponsor women. I choose to, go to meetings, and I choose to work my steps. There's one particular example a couple years ago. I identified a behavior that I wanted to work on. And so I called my sponsor and I said, "Hey, can we work the steps around this behavior?" And she said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I do find value in the 12 steps because I can work on any of my issues using those tools and those steps. So I think that's all I have right now.
No, it's very helpful. Last question, I promise. So if in the course of a conversation with your sponsor about whether or not you should participate in a particular activity or be in a certain environment, have you given your sponsor the ability to override what you think is best and you do that? Or do you always do what you think is in your best interest?
I'm very independent, and I like to make choices for myself. When my sponsor has given me advice to, like, for example, petitioning to get my record sealed, I did that before my informal probation was over, and she told me to wait it out. And I strongly believed that I deserved to fight for what I thought was right, and I followed through with that. And she supported me either way, but she just didn't want to see me get hurt. And so there's times where she will tell me, like, "You should have listened to me," but I believe that I need to make my own choices and learn from my choices because, yes, she's lived a lot of life and she doesn't want me to make the same mistakes she's made. But if I don't walk that path, then I'm not going to know why I don't, why I didn't do that. Regarding substance use, though, I don't want to, go down that road again. And so I take steps of not associating with people who use. I take steps of not going into trigger places like bars or parties. I value who I am today, and I value my reputation, and I value my recovery. And so I'm very selective about who I associate with and what environments I go into. And so I do like to consult with my friends, my sober support network, and my sponsor about, life decisions. But ultimately, I'm gathering data and then I'm coming up with my own conclusion.
All right, thank you. And thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for coming in today. You've kind of addressed some of the questions I had, and in lieu of the fact that it's been very left heavy, I'm going to defer to the other board members for his questions.
Hi, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I want to have, I have a couple of questions. So in your testimony, you talked about that, that you were recommended due to Al-Anon, when you were 16. And did you actually go to Al-Anon?
No.
No. What stopped you from going to Al-Anon that time?
I've always been an overachiever, so I was taking 20 units in college. I was of service. I was a group service representative at 5 Narcotics Anonymous meetings. I went 2-3 meetings a week. I had sponsees. I overfill my plate. And so I'm like, Al-Anon, like, my qualifiers aren't that bad. So I also think I was in denial about my qualifiers because I didn't want to face the work I needed to do and the boundaries I needed to set with them because I love them so much. So a big piece is denial, and another piece is I overcommit and I'm very busy.
I'm very glad that, you talked about, that, the struggle of being, independent and the denial part of it. Sometimes, it is really hard to admit the fact that people are in denial. And especially, you really want your way. So now, so for the denial, that becomes like your worst enemy, especially you have the shame, like that testimony you talked about. So how do you overcome this now?
Well, the denial, it's been hard. Recently, I had to set boundaries with one of my qualifiers, and that was the month of December, and it was one of the hardest months of my life because I've never set boundaries with this qualifier. But I had the support of my Al-Anon support group and my sponsor, who is also in Al-Anon and works her Al-Anon steps, which is why I'm going to be doing my Al-Anon steps with her. And so it is difficult and it is scary, but I have the support system and I work on it in therapy, and I have the tools that I need to get through it.
So just to have a gauge of how well you manage it. So let's say, on a scale from 0 to 10, how well do you think that you manage your denial? 10 being like, I got it, absolutely, I know how to handle it. Or 0, you're not doing it at all. So where are you at?
I don't know if I understand the scale.
Okay.
But I will try to answer of what I do understand. So I understand the question is coping with the denial today as opposed to when I was 16.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
so I would say that I am more so leaning toward I don't want to be in denial. I want to learn healthy boundaries with my qualifiers, and I have been learning healthy boundaries with them. And it's a very uncomfortable process, but that's what Al-Anon support groups are for. And that's why I go to my weekly Thursday meeting, and that's why I call my friend in there and I talk with her and I tell her, I don't like this. Can I just go back into my hole and not look at this? And she's like, yeah, but the beautiful lessons you learn. And that's the truth right there. The beautiful growth that I see by doing that tough work is more appealing to me than continuing to stay in denial.
Very good. Thank you. Now, I want, you use the word qualifier a lot. Who are your active qualifiers? But I mean, they're like, the active qualifiers in your addiction. So can you elaborate a little bit for us?
Yeah, and the reason I use the word qualifier is because it is an anonymous program, and I do know that this is public record, and so I would never want to shame my family. But I do have addiction that runs deep in my family with my immediate family, and if that's okay, I'd like to keep it anonymous.
Okay. So, so what you mean, the qualifier, it really is, I'm just trying to equate whether those are like the triggers or, so, but what you mean is that really it's about the people, just like the trigger, in your life.
That is correct. When I say qualifier, I'm referring to people in my life.
Okay. So now that lead me to another question. So how do you manage the active qualifiers? Because they are still in your life.
Yes, they are. Well, I've had to have some tough conversations with them, and I've had to set boundaries, and I've had to acknowledge to them that if they're going to call me drunk and bring me down, that I'm not going to allow that in my life, that I would love to have them in my life, and I am going to do the work to have them in my life, but I'm not going to allow negativity. So I practice healthy communication. I practice being non-judgmental toward them and their process. And when things happen that can trigger my emotions with feeling that hurt of like, how could they talk to me that way? Or how could they act that way? I call my support system and I process with them. And, one person who's a part of my support system has been in Al-Anon for 24 years. And so she's really embedded in the process. And so I do find value when I have conversations with her.
So I want to send you the first congratulations that, your willingness, to really set boundaries, especially family members, is hard. It's really hard. And so I'm glad that you're putting it in practice. And I'm really hoping that, you can continue to practice that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming in. I want to respect your privacy. So I'm asking a process question, not a content question. My guess is, based on what we've read and heard, you had a difficult childhood, which may have contributed to use. And I'm really clear about the sobriety piece of your work. I really see how well you're doing that piece, but there's also the personal growth part. And can you tell me your process for working on your personal growth? Like you touched in it a little bit when speaking about looking at your defensiveness and trying to soften that a bit, setting boundaries, learning about needing to set boundaries and how to do that. So process big picture stuff. Can you tell me the work that you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. I've always found value in therapy. And so after my DUI, I signed up for therapy and was with the same therapist for about 4 years until this process started. And then I needed to find a therapist who was non-biased, which actually I've built such a great rapport with that therapist. I will continue with him after. So I do a lot of my work in therapy because I feel like therapy is more of client-centered, and therapy is you meet the client where they're at. And so a lot of times I come to therapy with work that I'm ready to do, and my therapist is a sounding board for me, and he I don't want to say guides me, but there's just this therapeutic process that happens in there for me to where I find the solution that I need and I find my answer to where I can implement that in my situation. And I also find value in working the steps and working with my sponsor. And I've been in recovery since I was 16 years old. So I'm more so at a point of working on behaviors or character defects that come up. And so that's also another learning tool that I have in my life, is to be able to learn through a different lens by going through the steps. I have very good self-care techniques. I find value in journaling, working out, spending time with family. I travel. I go to Disneyland every year with my little cousins. I go to The Price is Right once a year. I just got my passport, and so I would love to travel out of the country. And I think once this is all over, that is going to be something I will do to reward myself. So I do believe that self-care is an important part of recovery and life and being a therapist. So little things I do throughout the week might be journaling, eating healthy meals to nourish my body, massages. I personally like to do my own nails because it's just, I'm with myself, it's quiet time. I feel accomplished for doing it myself. And I know those sound like little things, but it's all a part of what makes me happy.
Thanks. Yeah, I can see all the really good behavioral choices you're making. Are you doing depth-oriented work in therapy?
I am.
Okay.
And at first, it was scary to be with a therapist who was coordinating with my probation monitor, because I was like, wow, when you said that I probably had a traumatic childhood, if those were your words, like, you hit the nail on the head. And so I've always been very transparent about my childhood in therapy and done that depth work. And when I was with my therapist, Phil, he had built such good rapport with me that I was able to lay it all out there with him. I practically have done a fourth step with him. And, like, that's hard because when somebody does a fourth step with their sponsor, this is maybe the first person they've ever told their deepest, darkest secrets to. And, if they choose to share that with other people in the future, that's their choice. And so it's like there's very few people I've done a fourth step with, and he's definitely one of them. So, yeah, I do depth work, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here and for sharing everything. I don't have any questions at this time. Just want to thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Likewise, thank you so much for being here. I just have not a question, but just a clarification that has nothing to do with the recovery process. It's mostly a statement that you made at the beginning. It's because it's a public meeting. I want to make sure that, or maybe I'm the only one that totally misunderstood. So in that case, forgive me. But there was a process when you taught at the very beginning, you were sharing in relations to the not having had the time to sponge the record because you wanted to apply because this is your passion and everything else. It could have been perceived by the public because it's a public hearing, the fact that not everybody goes through the process because once if the record is expunged, perhaps the BBS doesn't have a record of it, and so people are not exposed to the same scrutiny as you're, subjecting yourself to. It's actually not the case. I just wanted for a clarification of record because we do receive situations where people had DUIs like 10, 15 years prior and they sponge the record, but they're reporting their behavior and it is taken in considerations as well. I just wanted to clarify because at the beginning it could have misled some people in believing that only some cases come through, only if we and not everybody get caught and a DUI is licensed, goes through this process, which is not the case. I'm sure it was not your intention, but I wanted to clarify if that was the case. So just a little statement. Thank you again. And thank you for the progress and everything else. Thanks.
Thank you for coming in, and I have no further questions.
Thank you for coming in, and I don't have any questions.
Thank you for coming in. And I do have one question.
Okay.
What is your current work?
Oh, great question. I am the Quality Assurance Director at Sun Street Centers. And so I'm the only person who authorizes a client to get into treatment. And we have 60 beds and 4 outpatients. And so I work a lot with the counselors and reviewing their assessments because Monterey County has a requirement that an LPHA is the one who authorizes treatment. And so that is the main part of my work right now. I do still have client contact. I do cover groups and I do individual sessions with clients. But as of right now, my work is heavier on the quality assurance piece.
Then now I have a follow-up question. If you were going to say percentage-wise, what percentage of time is QA, what percentage of time is client-based?
I would say right now 90% QA and 10% client.
Okay. Understanding the strength of your recovery program, do you have any concerns if you start taking on more direct client work that might put you into a more triggered situation?
I do not have any concerns. I actually thrive the best when I do client work, and that's something I'm working on with my clinical supervisor is remembering that I find value in that, and that actually makes me happy when I work with clients. I just got promoted in November as Quality Assurance Director, and they have struggled to replace authorizers. And so it's a temporary thing, and I am looking forward to going back to more client work because that is my passion, and I really enjoy working with clients.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I do have one quick question. On our and this may be just a logistical question. I have that the reimbursement costs have been, oh, I'm sorry. You paid those in full, and so they're done as of the 2017?
That is correct. I thought I had to pay that in full before I can get my intern number. I didn't know I could make payments.
Oh, okay. All right. So everything's been paid up a long time ago?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Seeing none, Ms. Heim, any additional questions?
No.
Ms. Gall, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No.
All right, then in a moment, I'm going to ask whether the matter is submitted. And by that, I mean, are you satisfied that you've had a full opportunity to present all evidence and argument on your behalf? Ms. Heim, is the matter submitted?
Submitted, yes.
Ms. Gall, is the matter submitted?
Yes.
All right, this case is submitted, this case is closed, and we are off the record.
I think at this point, we're going to take a lunch break.
Ms.
So,
Gall?
is that,
Ms.
Jonathan,
Gall,
did you have something
sorry,
else?
Don't leave
That's
until
okay?
you get a document from the court reporter.
Okay, so we're
and
gonna
make sure
take
he
a
doesn't
lunch
have any
break.
spellings for you. So just sit tight until he has had a chance. Okay, thanks.
I would ask that board members, if you could keep the lunch to an hour, that would be really appreciated. We have a full agenda this afternoon, and want to make sure that we allot enough time so that we can be thoughtful on all incidents. So if we could be back by 1.